Okay? Okay? Okay, we'll call to order the June 17th meeting of the Design Review Committee. May I have a roll call, please?
Esther Jacobson Bates.
Here.
Patrick Kavanagh.
Here?
Joey Colley.
Here.
Brian Deputy.
Here.
Jennifer Dryden Hess.
Here.
All present.
Okay, great, thank you. Joy, would you lead us in the
Sure.
pledge?
Hand on heart, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I so move.
A second?
Okay? Did I just ask?
Everybody, we can do informal. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Everyone in
Aye.
favor, say aye.
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 Passes
Okay, it'll
5-0.
be approved.
Esther and Joy.
The minutes are on page 6 of the materials that have been passed out. It's a kind of a lengthy recording of the minutes, and I appreciate the efforts to do that. I know it was a long meeting, though, and we're going to work hard to keep moving the minutes, the meeting tonight. So I want to make sure we continue to meet our obligations, but do it in an efficient way. So that's my objective.
Sorry, I think that we have a problem with the microphone, so if you could just
Okay.
pause for a second,
Sure.
see if we can fix this.
Give us 1 minute. Hello? Yeah.
Test, test.
Is she?
Can you
Hi.
hear us?
The people on Zoom, we can't hear you.
Can you hear us now on Zoom? So still not on Zoom.
Please unmute the room.
Okay, you are muted in terms of the Zoom itself.
On our screen it shows it muted. Okay, she can
Okay.
hear?
Okay,
Okay, they can hear us now.
you can hear now? Okay,
Yes, thank you.
of course, so the minutes, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting on May 20th? Any comments about it? Motion?
I would move to accept
Okay.
the minutes.
It's been moved and
I second.
seconded
Thank you. Everybody in
for the
favor?
approval of the minutes as presented.
Everybody say aye if you're in favor.
Aye.
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 I abstain. I wasn't present.
Okay, passes 4 yes, 1 abstain.
Okay, the next item is any public comment on items that are not on the agenda. I will say we do have on the agenda an item that was sort of in that category last time. That's the review of the dark sky lighting compliance issues, but that's a separate presentation that we'll do next. But I'm asking now for any public comment on items that are not on the agenda. Anyone in the room? No? Anyone else? Recognize that I see no one's indicated an interest in adding public comment on items not on the agenda at this time. So we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is review of the dark sky lighting compliance. And is this Ms. Emerson,
In person.
in person. That's right, you did a great job last week, or last month, rather, giving us your expertise. And again, we appreciate you doing that, continuing on the projects as you have. And we'd like to have a nice, a brief overview of the kind of work that you and We Watch are doing for the
Right.
betterment of the community.
So, thank you for the opportunity to share how to select outdoor lighting that protects both neighbors and the night sky from light pollution while conserving energy and protecting our wildlife. I'm representing We Watch, a Valley environmental and land use organization formed in 1992 by women concerned that we not become another San Fernando Valley. It's Save Our Stars Committee, now 20 years old, and working on a long-term project, obtained outdoor lighting ordinances for the San Ynez Valley. We're working with the county on a county-wide ordinance for unincorporated areas at this time. In addition, we advise individuals dealing with problem lighting. Susan Bott will comment on lighting at your meetings for Save Our Stars generally. We believe carefully selected outdoor lighting is important for safety, security, and nighttime ambience. Unshielded lighting in the valley makes it hard to see the stars. It causes agony for neighbors when others' lights shine into their homes. Each dark sky and neighbor-friendly decision that you make about lighting improves life for our residents and enhances views of the night sky for all of us living here, as well as for our visitors. Tonight's presentation focuses on helping you evaluate outdoor lighting plans as you review building and sign applications. Evaluation questions we use are, and you will find a tag on your first page, are lighting fixtures located so they provide lighting for their tasks without overlighting. For instance, parking lot fixtures need to cover a given area with light, but could be dimmable. 2, do light fixture designs meet fully shielded requirement? Does location require full cutoff fixtures? 3, what light bulbs are used and how many lumens are needed? What are their Kelvin measurements? And 4, what are the heights of the fixtures and will they cause light trespass? You need enough information from applicants to answer these questions before approving any application. They do not have to hire a lighting professional to provide it. Beginning with page 1 of your packet, a few comments about the Solvang exterior lighting ordinance, which you will use when evaluating projects lighting. Adopted in 2006, before LED lighting became common, before research established the need to protect wildlife, and before string lights became popular, it did require fully shielded and full cutoff light fixtures. It needs to be amended during the general plan update. Reference will be made to question 1 during our explorations, but we will begin with question 2, fully shielded and full cutoff fixtures. Please go to page 2 on the back side. A fully shielded light fixture has no light escaping above the horizontal plane, and you can see that in the graphic there. The light source is even with or above the bottom of the fixture's cap. Full cutoff moves the light source higher in the fixture and is used to prevent light trespass, where the bottom of the fixture will be above nearby windows or is on a hillside. Page 4 has examples of full cutoff fixtures, which are the more exacting requirement. Turning to the brochure, on panels 3 and 4, you will see examples of problem lighting and smart lighting choices grouped by tabs. Business and industrial sites, multifamily and single-family dwellings use security lighting. The unshielded single or double floodlights that you see there and wall packs are major light polluters in the valley. The top right fixture shows a floodlight retrofit called ParShield. And on page 4, the bottom right-hand corner shows a fully shielded, partially cut off floodlight. Many decorative light fixtures, going back to the brochure, are not fully shielded because the light source is below the cap and inside clear glass. And you can see a couple of examples of that problem. The smart lighting illustrates the light source in the cap. Incidentally, the bottom right photo is from Skip Mesa Phase 1, as is the street light on the back side. On page 4, right-hand corner, top right corner, you see a common problem, which is that even though the light source is in the cap, glass below the bottom of the cap radiates light out and up. And then see the next fixture, which illustrates glass that will protect a light that's down under the cap. Translucent glass is often used in an effort to shield bulbs below the cap, and much of it doesn't do a very good job. But the only really successful solution we've seen uses amber glass. On to question 3 and page 3. Watts, lumens, and Kelvin measurement. Traditionally, we used watts to choose bulbs. Watts are a measure of the energy used, and Title 20, which focuses on reducing energy use in buildings, favors LEDs. Now choose the incandescent column, and then you go to 100 watts. This is on page 3, the chart. Then go over to the LED column with just 20 watts. So those are equivalent fixtures. Now look at the lumens column on the far left for this line. This wattage has 1600 lumens. So you see those are very different kinds of figures. Now lumens are defined as the brightness of the light, not the energy used, but the brightness of the light emitted from a bulb. One has a very bright light if a bulb near the bottom number in the lumens column is used. LEDs make it easy to overlight, creating the problem of too intense light, so you need to be sure LED lumens are controlled. Now back to the back side of page 2. I'm giving you a lot of back and forth, and you're doing very well. I'm proud of you. The Kelvin scale measures the coolness or warmth of a bulb and is especially useful when choosing LEDs. Originally, LEDs were only available as the blue-white light, which begins at about 6,000 on the Kelvin scale. Research has shown that such light is harmful to wildlife and probably to humans too. And you have a wildlife brochure that goes into more detail. None of our lighting ordinance currently has a Kelvin requirement. That's the whole valley, the whole county. But we are asking applicants to please use warmer colored bulbs with a 3000 K measurement or less. And I hope that you will do that, not as a requirement, but as a request. Now on to question 4, height. See the brochure, panel 4, lighting, so that's the back side. You will need to evaluate landscape and parking lot lighting fixtures. They need to be fully shielded with height controlled. Trees or walls should not be lighted from below. You see a floodlight for highlighting trees or shrubs in that in the photos there, and lighting the sky. It's very good at lighting the sky. To its right is a fixture that can be hung in a tree to light from above. Fully shielded short pathway lights as pictured, or fully shielded shorter bullard fixtures are good pathway solutions. Parking lot lighting should be no taller than 12 feet to prevent light trespass into windows of buildings. One may need to increase the number of fixtures for full coverage of the parking lot. LEDs and light fixtures can be designed together for directional light that prevents light trespass. Some remodels may be extensive enough to require fully shielded lighting for the entire project. If not, you can suggest retrofitting or replacing non-compliant lighting. That's the long haul part of the work we do. We have a lot of problem lighting still in the valley. See page 5 for some retrofitting tools in addition to the partial. I suggest examining remodel policy and lighting as part of the general plan review. String lighting, especially popular with restaurants, needs mention. First, let's look at page 1, our lighting ordinance, section A3. This was a compromise, recognizing that some downtown buildings had permanent lights on the roof, and that LED strings on trees already existed. Requests for string lights with completely exposed bulbs are newer. One bulb may have relatively few lumens, but several strings cause considerable sky glow, which makes it harder to see the stars. On page 5, the Lightcraft fixture is fully shielded and is used on page 6 for the State Street Promenade in Santa Barbara. It lights tables and provides a glow on the street while protecting the night sky. The two Lowe's fixtures provide some protection, though the bulb is partially exposed. So that's like a fallback. The challenge with the village area is to provide light on the ground for safety and a feeling of security while preserving the ambience of a small Danish village, which is not overlit. No skylight searching the night sky, I hope, in the future. I did not include any sign lighting, but the same evaluation process applies to signs, and the sign ordinance discusses lighting, as you know. Existing good examples include Union Bank, Cork Hotel, and Home Connection, and increasingly sign lighting in Solvang is dark sky compliant, or no lighting at all is used. Dark sky compliant lighting is not available at our local hardware stores, but in Buellton, Just LED Plus Lights has a showroom and serves both local and nationwide clients with a wide selection of higher-end lighting, including dark sky compliant fixtures. In stores and online, one needs to study light fixtures carefully, as non-compliant fixtures may be mislabeled dark sky. The International Dark Sky Association certifies fixtures as dark sky compliant. Its website and WeWatches is on the back of our brochures. Finally, carefully selected outdoor lighting adds beauty to our built environment while protecting neighbors and our natural environment. A win-win for all of us. Thank you. Do you have any questions at this time?
Are there any questions? Not now, but we appreciate you being on our side of the field and on our bench, and so we appreciate very much your work. And this is, do you make the presentations like you did last month? Do you make those kind of presentations also for the Planning Commission? So, I mean, I know these are important elements of the design, and it's important for us to
Right.
incorporate it in our design review, but it's also part of the review that the Planning Commission does as well. Because I know there are.
Yes, and that's an important part of our work, to be
Right.
working with both the city and the county and Buellton as well
Right,
on outdoor lighting. And we do study, which has been more difficult with COVID because
Sure.
you can't come into the office to look at the plans. But we do that, and then we do speak to lighting. And I'm going to remain today to make a few comments about projects where applicable, and I already have talked with you about some of these projects.
okay.
So, yes, you can
Thank you very
expect
much.
that someone will be here to give our viewpoint on it.
We appreciate
Thank
that
you.
very much. Thank you.
I just wanted to add my thanks as well. It's been you, Nancy, Susan, WeWatch have been a great resource, because not only have you pointed out fixtures that aren't compliant, but you found solutions for the people that so that they had a problem identified and a solution identified as well. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is item 3, actually 3A, regarding 453 Atterdag Square. You have,
Yes, this is an item that was assigned to a subcommittee. This is Atterdag Square. It was reviewed by the DRC last month. There was a request by the DRC to provide some additional colors to the 2 cottages. And so a subcommittee was formed, and color choices were proposed by the applicant, Jennifer, committee member Duran Hiss and Cully met and chose the 2 colors. And I know when those get copied and screened and everything else, they don't look as good as the paint chips.
it's pretty good in here.
Yeah, and so the applicant was very, these are the colors that they proposed, and we're very appreciative of the committee's work. And so we just wanted to report back to the full committee what the decision was.
Okay, I don't think it requires any more action on our part. I think we approved it, we approved subject to the selection made by the subcommittee.
I spoke with the city attorney on this one. It would be best if you would just ratify it.
Okay,
Well, I'll move.
sure.
I'll move to take the recommendations of the subcommittee for the 3 colors selected, Cabot Trail, Rhine River, and Liberty Park for the project.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank
Very
you.
good. It's been moved and seconded to accept the recommendation of the subcommittee regarding the color palette for this project in the Atterdag Square buildings.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
Oh, yeah,
Aye.
aye.
Okay, pass 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the committee, and thank you to the applicant and owner.
The next item is on the water wheel project, 425 First Street. Again, this particular project has been reviewed a couple of times at the DRC, and the last meeting, there was a proposal to work with the applicant on 3 different choices of colors. A subcommittee was appointed to work with the owner and the painter, and we had Commissioner Jacobson Bates and Commissioner Deputy meet and make a choice. I believe the color was Stillwater, was the choice that was made. And that was reported back to the applicant, and there was some additional discussions. And I don't know if he's on the screen or not.
So
I'm sorry, can I just clarify? This was just the trim?
The trim,
Yeah,
yes,
so that was the only color we were.
exactly. The previous meeting, there was a choice already made, the origami white.
Say that again, please.
And specifically, this was the half timbers that we're talking about, because this isn't speaking to the window, or excuse me, yeah, the windows or the railings.
This is the half timbers.
Just the half
Okay,
timber
that's right,
color.
That's right. Okay.
So I don't believe the applicant or representative of the applicant are
Okay.
here today.
Well, let's, give me one of each of those, and what I'll do, just for the benefit of the,
That's the selected color, not these two.
yeah, well, there is, one is the Stillwater, the other one is the Moscow Midnight. So this is the Moscow Midnight, so I guess they can
Yeah.
see the cameras.
Stillwater.
This is Moscow, this is Stillwater, so this is recommended by the subcommittee, and this is the one that continues to be preferred by the developer,
Correct.
correct? So I guess the question is, do we insist, or do we,
Well,
go ahead, please.
yeah,
Yeah.
Brian, you wanna-
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and one thing that's not apparent, because I'm looking on the screen here, is that how these colors actually work in real life on the building,
Yeah.
sunlight, and the one that Esther and I considered very, with a lot of objectives in mind, specifically, what our charge is, as far as being authentic and all that kind of stuff. We made our choice based on how it looked in the real application. The other one that I believe the applicant wants to use looked very garish and a little circusy. So we strongly recommend that they comply with our recommendations, because it'll be a lot nicer.
I echo Brian's comments. It was very easy for us to make the determination when the 3 samples were painted on the building. We had a good conversation, extended conversation with the painter that helped clarify things, because what's not in the context of the request is also really important. It is that the tile roof, the existing windows are pretty much the same color as the tile roof. And the intent, according to the painter, is that they would be repainted the same color. So the contrast between the white of the body of the building, the bluish gray Stillwater for the half timbers, and then the terracotta, for lack of a better word, for the windows, really looked like a sophisticated combination that was compliant with the guidelines that we're tasked with following. In addition, I just want to, kind of one more remark, and that is that there's already been a compromise on this building because it's a white building. across the street from a white building, down the street from a white building, behind a white building, across the alley from a white building. So I think it's really important that the building look good in the context. It's a beautiful building. It's been ill-tended, and we can't wait to see it completed. So I think we definitely hope that the rest of our committee will support our decision for the Stillwater.
By the way, just a small little thing, but just for purposes of accuracy, the memo from the staff refers to Moscow blue, and it's Moscow midnight.
Yeah.
But just to be sure, these are colors from Sherwin-Williams. Any other comments? If not, I mean, I think we've talked about the project, we understand it, and I think this is the time when, you know, we're asked to do our job. I'm open to accept a motion.
Do you want a formal motion on this as well?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I would move to accept the subcommittee's decision on the Stillwater color for the trim, or half timbers.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the subcommittee's recommendation.
And actually, we probably,
Sorry?
before I take the roll call here, if we could open it up to public comment, maybe?
Yes, okay, that's fine, thank you. Are there any public comments in the room? Are there any public comments by those in the Zoom room?
If you'd like to speak on Zoom, please raise your hand or unmute yourself.
Okay,
Welcome.
seeing none, I think we'll go and proceed to the, do we have a motion in a second? So I think we can, are there any other comments from members of the, okay?
Right. Everybody in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, passes 5-0.
Thank you all. That's an important, I think, that's an important decision for
I
us.
think it's an important building, and it'll look really nice when it's completed.
It's exciting to see the roof getting cleaned this week.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, it's gonna be terrific, terrific building. Okay, great. Item 4A is another project that we've had before us, and again, one that was, Lori, why don't you summarize where we are on the
Yes.
11-unit condo project at 539 Alisal.
539 Alisal is a 11-unit condo project that was approved by the Planning Commission. It was heard by your committee last month. And we are here tonight because the direction by the DRC was to come back, the approval of all of the other items on the project, except for the timber color, which was white. And is there, in this PowerPoint?
Can you please pull up the screen?
Not back here, Lori, by the way. I snuck in.
Okay.
Oh, hi there. So we have, the applicant was on vacation as we were putting the materials together, and so we ended up with a late arrival on his recommendations for colors. I'd like to go to my PowerPoint first. As was mentioned by Eric Vasquez at the last meeting, the project did go through iterations. And unfortunately, we couldn't pull those up on the screen last time, so I do want you to see the deliberative process that the project went through previously. And when it was first submitted, it was white with dark timbers. And it also had a mirrored feature on it that was suggested to be changed. And then they came back with a different combination of colors
So you
that
could
included
pull up
brick.
first.
That's it?
It should recognize my screen.
I'm getting a lot now.
Okay, give us just a second. Go ahead, Lori.
And then there was another proposal to do brickwork on it. And then ultimately, what was decided was the two colors that you reviewed last time. The roof materials changed, the roof structure changed so that it wasn't a monolithic looking two gables. There was a nice feature to it, but it also included the white timbers. And that is what the planning commission saw, that is what you saw at your meeting. And so the applicant, so here we go, just so we can flip through these quickly. So this was the actual first building that was proposed by the applicant. This was reviewed by staff, and then the next one. This was what came back later. You can see that there's a two-toned element, there's a change in the roof style, there was the brickwork, and you know, other elements were added. And then the next one. And then this is what was the final decision, to take away from the white, go with this, you know, two-tone color, and then, but still have the white timbers on it. So what the applicant at the last meeting said that they wanted to move forward with this. It was recommended for them to come back with some alternative colors for the timbers. And so we're gonna flip back over to what Eric sent over.
I think this was inspiration for the last design, and here's the current proposal.
If I might, Lori, just
Yeah.
so you know, our architect.
Come on up.
Oh.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, please. Good to see you
Yeah.
in the flesh.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So if you can go back up to the first slide, Lori, if you don't mind. I just want to give, yeah, there. So I've actually been to this place. I don't know if any of you have been to Canal. It's probably the most famous spot in Copenhagen, outside of the museums and Tivoli Gardens. That's not a drawing, that's not a painting, that's a photo. And it's like that on both sides of the canal. And when we came to the final proposal, this was the inspiration. We wanted something live, vibrant, light, fun, and that's what we were going for. And I think we try to reflect that in the actual building. And you can see here, there's muted colors. It's not bright yellows, it's muted yellows, it's muted blues, and with white to keep that light, airy feel to it. That's what we were trying to do. So I just wanted you to point you out that you know, this is a real neighborhood in Copenhagen. This is not made up. As far as the second slide, Lori, if you go down, I apologize. My architect's in Idaho, and the body of the building, we're not proposing for these colors. We're proposing to leave them as the yellows and blues. So if you can just focus on the colors of the half timbers, those are three that we're proposing. Personally, I've seen the darker half timber on the muted colors, and I think it's a bad look. I'd rather not go with dark timbers. I want to keep that light, airy look to the building. And I apologize, I wish we had had the right colors, but the architect, their computer couldn't do it remotely for some reason. But the three colors at the bottom are three that we're proposing that could be used in stead of the white. Okay.
Could you go back to the white timbered picture though?
This one or the
The
prior
proposed-
design?
the
The
current-
proposed,
yeah.
his drawing,
So the current approved one,
yes.
yeah, this one here. So it would still be those colors, just with darker timbers, which will kind of darken the kind of overall feeling of the building, I believe.
And I apologize, I was gone last meeting, I did watch it online, but I couldn't really tell the colors. So this is kind of a brown roofing material
It
that you
is.
have here. That's why I wanted to kind of go back to look at the trim color, you know,
Mhm.
thinking of.
And of course, you know, we submitted a color board to the planning commission. This yellow and blue, that looks more like a purple to me. It's actually more of a lighter blue, and it's a lighter yellow from the color
The
boards.
next
but-
slide has the colors.
Oh, okay. So we're open to your suggestions. If you have any questions, here to answer them if you'd like.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. We appreciate your responsiveness to the concerns we've had. Any,
Back to the trim, please.
yeah.
I wish you could put them side by side.
Might just in a small version.
I did want to point out, and I appreciate the reference picture, because I did look at that with last time. There are no half timbers on any of those buildings in that picture, which is notable, because I was looking for that.
There's no what?
There are no half timbers on
Oh, yeah.
that shot
Yes.
in Denmark.
No,
So-
Newtown, the covered
Correct.
area doesn't have half timber
Right,
buildings.
so I was searching for other sources that had those types of colors, and most of the timbers are still they're a brown. Similar to your roof color, actually, which I think I showed a picture to last time. So that was sort of, again, where I was headed last time, which was if you are gonna do a darker trim color, it should, you would think it would be a warm tone because of the roof being warm, rather than a cool gray, which would probably, I would agree with you, wouldn't look necessarily the best, especially the dark, deeper granite color, because there's too much blue in it. But again, this is computer, so without the actual chip, it's really hard for me to determine ultimately any of it without chips. That's just my view.
I echo that view, and that's why I was asking if we could see them side by
Yeah,
side.
that's good.
And the color of the roof. I'm right there with Jennifer on that if it's a brown roof, then the half timber should be something that complements that and pulls it together. And it would really be helpful to see the actual paint samples, because the one thing we've learned here is that what you see on the screen versus what you have in a printout isn't necessarily what the actual color is.
Yeah,
Do you, are there any other proposals that, I mean, it's a spectrum of grays is what's shown here, I guess the one, they're all,
is the one in the middle, no, maybe
that's the darker blue gray.
Mr. Vasquez, if I could ask, is it, my understanding is that your preference is probably on the lighter shades of the Collingwood? Is that what you're hoping would be the choice, or?
Yes, our preference is to keep a light, airy look to the building. And there actually are some in town, the As Seen on TV building on the corner, that actually has white half timbering as well, and that actually has a light yellow coloring of the body of the building, which is, again, the look we were going for. Again, tell me what color you want, I'll bring it. I didn't have this direction last time, I would have brought it if I had, so just tell me what you want.
Well, I think my reaction to it and to the picture, I mean, that's a beautiful place, and that's what people think of when they think of Denmark today. The design standards that we're really charged by the city council to enforce relate to not to Denmark today, but to an 18th century historical traditional Danish design. And what this tries to be is not just Danish, but it tries to be kind of a historical Danish village, and that's the object, and that's just what we are told to enforce when you read the design standards. And it specifically talks about, darker timbering and darker colored, and of the nature that it looks like it's made of wood, like it was. And some are painted for sure, and we know that there's a lot of different paint colors that are used. I think our preference that you're hearing is something close to that, is something that looks more like timbering, and maybe it has is in the same general palette or family as the roof, perhaps. My concern about these colors here, is it looks like concrete or steel. I mean, it looks like concrete especially, and some of it is concrete. I'm not sure how you're gonna, if it's gonna be built as some are, that with faux timbers that are painted a certain color, and there's a number of those around. We just talked about one where that's the case. or you're using real timbering somehow or another and then painting it, but this looks like, to me, and I'm the least artsy person on the panel here. I mean, I have zero artistic sensibility, but it looks more like concrete. And so I can't speak for everybody. My sense is something looks, that better follows the design standards were caused, which is a darker wood color.
Well, can I ask the committee, would you be happier if we went back to the very first design we had? With that, I think, I don't like the muted colors with the dark timbering personally. I think it darkens the building, but the very first design is very in line with what your guidelines are. Would you feel better with something along those lines?
I liked the one with the brick in. I was
Well,
surprised
see,
that
that's
that was,
That's the
yeah.
problem. You ask 5 people, you're gonna get 5 different
Right.
opinions.
Well, I agree, I agree with it. Was there some, I mean, like financial reason that
No.
that one couldn't be considered?
No, I was going with the recommendations of the city staff that I was working with at that time. And how many more times do I go through this before I get a consensus? And to answer your question, they didn't like that design. Whoever was at the city at the time, we sent it to them, they said, no, we don't like it. Give us something more, give us something lighter, airier.
Oh, that's
So-
interesting.
Well, that is, to me, very traditional. It's almost like the Elber Blade one.
But
Yeah,
that wasn't the direction I was given at the time.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
none of us
understand.
were here.
Yeah. Well, what can be done moving forward? I mean, what I'm getting from you is that you're not gonna go back to Plan B at this point.
I'm in second plan check to build this right now.
Right, so you need to go forward with what you have. If I understand, the colors, are they required to get your final on the permit, or to get the plans for the, approved for the permit?
I did not think so, no. My
Okay.
understanding is I wasn't even to come back here only for lighting
Okay.
from the planning commission.
Well, what I was thinking is that, perhaps another one of those subcommittees could work with him on a tone that would be complementary to the roof, or that it would be a return with some actual samples in hand.
That's my biggest thing, is really just seeing the real paint sample colors, not just digital representations of the colors. It's really unfair to us, actually, to ask us to pick colors from
I would
digital.
have happily done that had I
Yeah.
known.
No, it's fair. I'm just saying it is really hard for us the representation changes completely, obviously, in real life, as you can understand.
Yeah, and this is a relatively new committee. Obviously, we
Right.
just come in since the first of the year, kind of a brand new in this chair, but I think what we've all done, and I appreciate it so much, where all of us have gone in ourselves and really reviewed the charge that the city council has given us to abide by the existing design review standards, and they're pretty specifically laid out and embellished on in the resolution that basically set up this group. And I think people are taking that seriously, and perhaps with a different view. But I think what I've described is what that standard is, and it's not lightness. It's not white and pastel.
So I asked the committee again, if we are gonna go, would it be okay if I just went back to my original brown and white design building? I mean, if we're going to open this back up, can we just go back to that, or are we still, I don't know what's on the table and what's not at this point.
So just to make the record clear, the planning commission approved the blue and yellow building. If we go and have something else, we probably have to take it back to the planning commission, because the planning
Yeah.
commission, reviewed the project. Your action here was to review what the planning commission did, and again, you are a new committee, we want to give due respect to this committee to see what the planning commission approved. And they did approve the yellow and blue, they actually liked it very much. They did approve the alternating roof styles. If you go back to the original one, you got a completely different look to the building.
Right.
So I would be very hesitant to go back to the original submittal. I think you need to stay with the blue and yellow, and the issue really is the timbers, colors.
Right.
And I think
And they
that-
approved the white timbering,
They did.
that was part of the presentation that they saw.
And truthfully, to your, due respect to your committee, the planning commission wasn't so focused on the design guidelines and in the literal interpretation of them as you are today.
Yeah.
And I think that's giving us as staff, as well as the planning commission, some guidance.
You're right, I understand.
That this is
And
the
that's-
direction you're heading.
Well, and also, and I apologize if I interrupted you there, Lori. I think that the time that you went to the planning commission, the process that is in place was not working because this committee wasn't formed, because the the process is design review committee for concept, planning commission for overall approval, although the final colors and lighting and signs come out of our committee here. And that obviously didn't happen with your project, and I feel great empathy for you for the extended period of time you've had to put into doing and redoing the redo. But ultimately, we still have to see what the actual colors are, and we wanna do that.
I just feel I'm being put in a position where I have to change one aspect of the building into something I don't want, and if I wanna change the entire thing, then I've gotta go back to the planning commission. I mean, that's, I understand, I'll bring the colors and we'll bring the samples to you next week, but that's the position I feel like.
Do you have problems, making the timbers the same color as the roof?
I don't
And
know.
leaving the yellow and blue as it is?
It's not my preference, no, but if that's what this committee requires, then that's what I'll do.
How about, a compromise, Jen just pointed out on this is from a different project, but we have some paint, samples here, kind of in the mid-range, so we're talking about the warmer brown, but not so dark like the roof. Is there
Okay,
a
good.
place that we can sort of meet in the middle? It doesn't have to be this, but this is just an example of
That's
something
good.
that's here.
That's
I'll,
good.
So we can
I'll,
look
I'll
at
run
it.
it by my architect and I'll bring in some samples at the next meeting.
And if you would bring in maybe a palette like that goes in a tonal range, because
Yeah.
perhaps there's something in there, she said,
Yeah,
that
something-
could be in the middle or the lighter end of the spectrum that would still work.
Okay,
We definitely want you to be happy. I mean, we do.
Do,
It's just that it's really difficult when you're asked to follow a guideline and then you deviate, it's challenging. So I appreciate, we're all trying to just get to a win-win. We
I've been
really are.
driven to this spot.
We are trying.
I didn't arrive at on my own.
We're all trying to get to a win-win.
And
Right.
I think ultimately, we really want you to be happy with the building that you put this much time and energy, not to mention money, into. So, we wanna help you get there.
Okay.
So, recommendation is, continue this to the next item, which is a month from now, or set up a subcommittee and do the same review that we did with the other ones, and then that'll give him direction as to what you're recommending, and we can move forward to, bringing back a report at the next meeting.
Yeah, I would just still request ratification by the entire committee,
If ratification of
of the subcommittee, if
of the
that's
subcommittee,
the way
as
you
we
go.
have today.
Well,
Right.
are you interested in a subcommittee meeting? That's,
You tell me.
You just want to get to
That's
the
right.
end, yeah, I appreciate that, and we want you to be there too. I hope you appreciate the constraints we think we're obliged to operate within, and that is, to protect the integrity of the thing that was created here over 100 years ago when they created Solvang, and why you're looking forward to having, a 11 condo place and all these other discussions, because creating this Danish village from the 18th century is what draws the customers here. And I think, so we want to, stick with those directions. And, what we're asking for future applicants is for them to explain why the colors they've selected do meet those requirements, why they are consistent with that, not a seascape or a riverfront in Copenhagen, but what it was like 150, 200 years ago.
Well, actually, that is, Pal. That area was always
Okay.
built like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I
Yeah,
stand
it just
corrected, but it's not,
it wasn't a half tipper.
but the standard is
Yeah.
not today's Denmark, that's all.
Yeah, and the question about, subcommittee, that'll save you a couple of weeks and we'll get right on it too, so.
Okay, I'll work with staff. Thank you.
So we need a subcommittee?
Sure.
I'm fine, I'll,
Brian,
on it. Yep,
you've done a good job with that?
Do you wanna do it again, Brian?
sure.
Okay.
I wanna help. I wanna
Is
help
that
out.
another volunteer there?
Yeah, we can, and you let us know or let staff know when you have colors and we'll jump on it as quickly as we can.
Esther volunteered again and was here this time.
So I would move to form a subcommittee, Esther and Brian, to review the forthcoming paint samples, hopefully very soon, and make a decision therein.
Right away.
All right, thank you.
And we'll bring the report back to the next committee meeting.
Okay, there's a second on that? We're gonna,
Yes, I'll
that's just
second
the
that
action for
motion.
disposition, okay?
Okay,
Any other comments?
public comment?
Please.
Once again.
Looking at the minutes and my notes, it seemed to me that with the lighting, everything was okay, except there wasn't information about the height of the parking lot lights. And I would like to know if perhaps that can be answered tonight, because it seemed to me you were very close to having a satisfactory report on the lighting. It was just, everything was fine, except you just didn't have that information to judge the parking lots.
You mean for this particular project?
Uh-huh.
If we could maybe ask the applicant if he has that information, you could continue that conversation.
I don't have it off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the plan set.
We'll report to the subcommittee on that, and we'll bring that back at the next meeting.
Okay,
And once
Thank you.
again, the final,
we'll get that and we'll secure it.
and the final action will be taken at the next entire DRC meeting.
Correct. Well, but we are approving though
you-
the designation of this. of the
You're,
subcommittee.
you're approving designation of a subcommittee who is designated to work between now and the next
Okay.
regularly scheduled meeting to make recommendations on selected colors for the half timbers, and then that recommendation will come to DRC for
Okay.
ratification.
And can I ask one more question, Zena? Is it possible to get the digital presentation to have for the subcommittee?
Yeah, absolutely,
That'd be
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so there was a
Okay.
motion and a second on the floor. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Next item is project 4B.
This item is being brought back to you for the McLean Winery and the Park Building at 1623 Mission Drive. This particular tenant in the Park Building was reviewed at the last meeting, and at that meeting, there was the overall master plan for the Park Building, and then there was the action afterwards to review the McLean Winery. The direction was to meet and be consistent with the Park Building plan. And so what was brought forward by the applicant is that they are doing the projection sign, which is approvable by staff as the action from the plan, from the design review committee. But they still want the signs that are illustrated on the screen. The first sign is McLean sign, which is a 7-foot square sign. The wine tasting and sign on the other side is also 7 square feet. And the city ordinance has a business sign of 7 square feet in total, not independently. The previous meeting, the design review committee did note that they could have 2 signs in the size that the Park Building had, so it'd be McLean and then the wine tasting area. So we're recommending here tonight that either they choose one 7-foot square sign, or in respect to the previous DRC action, have 2 signs that are 3.5 square feet that meet the city ordinance, at least in spirit, and following up with the actions that you took last time. The other features that are also a part of this application is that they are removing one of the lights that, by the McLean sign, they're removing the lights that are currently installed there, and they're putting like a telescope light that will shine down on the McLean sign. It does meet the design code and the dark sky, it's just very direct on that sign. And then the third feature is they are proposing to have retractable shading.
Yeah, that's a separate item in the agenda, but that's right, that's
Yeah,
another item.
it's all in the same McLean package.
Right.
And that's the black ones that will project out to the street. So our recommendation is one or the other of the size of the sign, and approving the shading structure as well as the lighting.
Okay.
And the applicant is available on
I see
Zoom
the
if you'd
applicant
like to.
available. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, just to clarify, it mentions in here a couple times that McLean is taking 3 of the units, but there's really 2 that are street front, right?
Correct.
So the third is on the backside?
Correct.
So, when looking at the front of the building, there's the 3 sort of window sections of the 3 units. That third one on the right is a different business, right? So when we're looking at that third awning on the far right?
Correct.
That's a different business.
Right.
So, and so the awning, I mean, the proposal is for awnings over all 3 windows?
Correct.
Right.
And that's been proposed by also Jim McEwen.
Sure.
For what looks consistently along the front
On the
of
front,
Mission Drive.
right.
And the application is signed by the owner of the par building.
Yeah.
So the owner is requesting, along with this, all 3
For
be
the
the
awnings,
same.
okay.
Yeah.
I mostly was just trying to clarify, because for me, it makes a difference with the signs, because of course, again, another business is gonna want their sign there as well,
Mhm.
which I think is important to factor in. Personally, I like the idea of a bigger McLean sign and just one sign.
One
is
sign.
Sort of my preference, but.
My concern is the lighting, if they're taking out a light and they're replacing it with a directional light that's only illuminating the sign, what's the ambient light there on the sidewalk area? You know, how does that change the overall lighting for safety? Because I know that when we originally approved this, part of it was that it not be removal of a light for public safety. And yes, it is compliant for signs, but it's only for signs, not for the sidewalk.
Is the sidewalk gonna be used as well for seating?
Yes.
It's just, it is.
It'll be there's basically 2, the pedestrian street, which you can see on this with the regular sidewalk, a little bit of a break with the landscaping, and then there's probably about 7 feet of area for seating.
So they'll be using that for their own private purposes, that's
Yes.
not really much of a public walkway?
No.
What's the entrance into their business though?
The entrance into the business is the sliding doors these are sliding glass doors. You got the stairway going up to that patio and to the glass. You can enter it from the courtyard.
Okay. So that's why I'm thinking that, you know, right now we're in the longest days of the year, so it's not really an issue, but, you know, think of the holidays, that it's important to be able to have lighting, not just on the sign.
I have a clarifying question as well. Is the landlord supportive of the light changing also on the front exterior?
According to the applicant, the landlord has signed and is supportive of the application as submitted.
Okay.
Okay. Let me solicit any comments anybody in the room have regarding this matter. Yes, please?
Nancy Emerson.
Nancy Emerson,
You are.
yes.
My notes indicate something about the light fixture having 50 watts. And I'm not sure if it's an LED, that's high. If it's an LED, it's not high if it's incandescent.
This is in reference to the sign light, Nancy, just to
Yes.
clarify? Okay. Yeah.
I drove by this building and looked closely at the owner's lights, and these lights are not fully compliant, but that's a done deal. There's a long, narrow bulb that is, I haven't seen lit at night, but it will probably be interesting to see how it looks. So I would just encourage.
So you have
get-
questions about the,
There's nothing to be done about the lights on the building,
okay,
because they were approved.
they were approved, okay.
But I just wanted you to check the wattage on the light fixture.
Okay, we'll ask Lori, can you,
It's- It's a fully compliant light fixture.
I
It's
just want to check the wattage,
Wattage, yeah.
okay? We'll see that that's done, and
I can probably look at it.
I don't know that we have the specs on there. You do have there?
It says it's an MR16 bulb.
What is it?
Yeah. It says bulb type is an MR16, which is typically a strong downlight. I believe it's a halogen
Yeah,
type.
that's a halogen.
Right.
Oh, yeah, maximum wattage 50 watts, it says there.
So it's a 50-watt halogen is what they're
Yeah.
calling out there.
Okay?
And
Did you hear that? Okay.
of course,
Are there any other comments from the room here? If not, then I'll turn to people in the Zoom space for any comments. Just signal if you'd like to make a comment.
Raise your virtual hand or unmute yourself if you'd like to speak on this item.
Is the applicant able to speak?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, so thank you guys so much for listening to us again for the second meeting. And to clarify on the light, it absolutely is dimmable. So that's something that we can completely, take charge of to make sure that that's absolutely compliant.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments you have regarding the application presented to us
Yeah, I'll
now?
make one more comment. This is Jason McLean. Thank you
Please.
so much once again. I appreciate you guys' time. A couple of the comments you guys have mentioned about the light for the safety. If it's the committee's desire, the lantern light, which is there, I have no problem having our people move the lantern light to the left side of the entrance. So you'll still have that luminescence if that's really important to the committee. There's plenty of light that comes through that door, of course, and I can see that might be some kind of concern, but it is just our patio area if that's a real concern. That's one thing. The second thing I'll make comment on is Jim's been completely supportive this entire process, just a complete, absolute saint in helping us to get this project done. We are hopeful to be opened up before 4th of July weekend, fingers are crossed, if we can get these things in gear. I understand, the last meeting that we had, that you guys were gracious enough to give us more signage than would be normal for the site plan because we had multiple suites over there. I also heard the comment from the other wonderful individual that said, might there be a concern with the other suite on the far right-hand side. So my thought might be, if it's agreeable to you guys, is to just do the one sign, not the two signs as you guys had allowed us to do last time. Put it right there in the center. I would ask if the committee would consider allowing us to go a little larger than 7 square feet and just doing one sign with a downlit. We can even match the bulb if they want to with the other lights that are on the building, if that's more concern important as well. But it's just, I love the idea of one sign. I love the idea of all 3 of the awnings matching 100%. They're retractable, of course, so that means they can kind of blend away and not be visible if need be. But if that's something that you might consider, we'd really appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you for your willingness to adapt that way. And I can't speak for the group, or I'm not sure the staff has any comment on that. My personal reaction is, I don't want to get on a slippery slope and start adjusting the requirement in the standard, from 7 foot to some other, if that's the standard, that's the standard for the large sign. And but I do think it can be made to look, look very attractive there. It's an attractive sign, and it's right on 246. So, you're going to get a lot of eyes on it. Lori, do you have any comment?
I think that with the projection sign, which is out there on the street, and that's 7 feet projection sign, and then this 7-foot McLean Winery sign that does say wine tasting lounge underneath it.
Underneath it, yeah.
I think that that's consistent with the ordinance, and I can't recommend anything other than to adopt what is being proposed
Okay.
here, which is one sign, one projection sign, lighting, and then the awnings.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public regarding this? From the committee?
I just agree with the slippery slope. Thank you, Abby. That's what it'll come up again, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to go back to my lighting comment. I had thought that area was gonna be potentially pedestrian traffic after hours. So I think you can disregard my comment about concerns, if there's a projection light there, because if it's open for business, they're gonna have lights if it's dark, and it will be sufficient. I think that moving a light is not a good idea, and I absolutely agree with the sign size and sticking with the ordinance.
And I won't mention that it's going to be reflected off a white surface.
And I think the sign looks really, it's a good
I
looking sign.
I think it's a
very high
catchy, I like
It's a
it, yeah.
handsome sign, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I
any other
just-
comments?
Yeah, I just would
Jennifer?
say, just in the, sort of in the business of taking additional space. Often, right, if you take 1,200 square feet or you take 5,000 square feet, you don't get different signs, you get the ordinance. So it happens in terms of commercial practice, that's just the way it's handled. So we have to, again, if we're gonna be sticklers about colors on half timbers, we're definitely gonna be to the letter of the sign ordinance. So I think that's just being consistent
Okay.
and predictable. So I would support sticking with the one big
Okay.
sign if that's what he would prefer.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
Motion, lady.
Well, I'll move that we follow staff recommendation of allowing the one sign, McLean Cellars sign of 7 square feet with the
Wine
projection
tasting
light.
underneath it then.
Oh, yes, the McLean wine tasting
Yeah.
sign as presented with the light, and if they would consider looking at the strength of the bulb and consider potentially using an LED fixture.
Okay, is,
And approval of the awnings.
I think the awnings is separate.
the awning's a separate item, but we can take it up now. I mean, that was.
The-
Awnings are part of
Actually,
this.
There's
Sorry?
actually 2 different awnings on this building. This one is with just the McLean frontage. There is a different awning that's in the
Right.
courtyard area.
Is
That's
that
a
on the
separate-
other item?
That's the
Separate,
other
okay.
item, yes.
Okay, and the awnings.
So the
as
awning is
presented.
part of this motion?
Correct.
then? Okay.
Correct.
Yes,
And we also have the projection sign that you did review last time, but we might as well put it all in the same package.
And the projection sign is
Thank you.
presented.
Okay, great.
I second that motion.
Okay.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Passes 5-0.
One issue that, I ask city manager perhaps to discuss with council. And it's a small deal, but it's one that this reminds me of another case we had earlier. And that is, in the city ordinance, there is a limit on how long a person can take to file an appeal of our decision to the city council. it's 10 days. It has to be submitted in writing within 10 days. And if it isn't, it's pretty significant consequence. This is not that. This is an application for reconsideration, but it was a reconsideration of a decision made in April, not the last meeting, but 2 meetings ago. And so then you start wondering, again, we're talking about slippery slopes. Should there be, and maybe there shouldn't, or should there be a limit on when you can file for reconsideration absent special circumstances or whatever? I hate to have, create a circumstance in which, 3 months after we take an action, maybe that's not necessary. I just appreciate you running that by council to see if you think if that's necessary or if
and it's obviously not something that's on the agenda, but I can just procedurally really briefly address that. Your committee was established by an ordinance, which is part of the city code now, and actually as part of that ordinance, one of the and that gives flexibility, which I both like and don't like necessarily, but it gives the planning director, which I happen to be acting as well, a possibility of asking you for a review of anything that's within your jurisdiction. So sometimes, yes, I think that slippery slopes are not what we desire, but sometimes when the process wasn't as clear and clean to where there's still questions outstanding, I may at times defer back to you for your consideration and your decision.
Okay.
So I guess our request is that if it can be done within the month of the meeting, that seems most reasonable. Of course, there's probably gonna be the exception that proves the rule.
Right.
But I think for us, it would be very helpful, because it seems as though we're revisiting a lot of things revisited and even some revisited already, so.
Yeah, and we just want to resolve issues as quickly as we can, but we want to do it fairly and all of that sort of thing. But I just think that we want to make sure that people understand there should be a limit on it, that's all. And again, with regard to appeals to the city council, it's very explicit. And that, of 10 days, 10 days from the action of the committee, the appeal has to be in writing, so. Okay. Moving on. Item 5A, one of my favorite items.
The item before you is the sign plan for the Duato Gallery and Puzzles at 1659 Copenhagen Drive. There's a number of signs, so I'd like to walk through them because over the last week, we've had some additional changes. So if you could go to the slide, please.
I believe they're installed at this time too, aren't they? As noted.
Pardon me?
They're already installed on site.
Actually, those are temporary signs. The business did open about a month ago, and I was surprised when I walked over there and saw them, and I talked to them, and they said they were just temporary, but this is the full sign plan that they're going forward with.
So I guess my question is what's up there representative of what's in the plan, or is that something?
A little bit, but
Okay.
there's
No.
All right.
What is submitted?
So let me walk through what we received originally and then what is currently being proposed. So if you go to the next slide. Here's the locations of the signs that are part of the building. Again, this is at the corner of First Street and Copenhagen. And all of the signs that are being proposed were previous locations of other signs for other businesses. So they're replacing in the same location as previously used. Go to the next slide. There's a little trellis feature at the entry of the diagonal door, and the original proposal that came in was on your left-hand side. Duato Gallery is what was going to be hanging from both of the awnings. Earlier this week, we got a proposal that the Duato Puzzles would be the actual sign. That's what they would prefer. A little bit bolder, a little bit brighter sign that would be hanging in that awning area. in both directions, so there'd be 2 of them there. So the next one. These are the 2 signs that would be hanging in the eaves above, almost on the 2nd story element. And when it first was proposed, the rooster would be golden. We got a proposal to include the rooster in more of a color element with both listing gallery and puzzle parlor. And both those signs would hang in both of the eaves as facing First Street. The next one, and this is just the other location. And again, there were previous signs at these locations prior. This would be the wall sign that would be on First Street, and it would be the Dwaddle puzzles. And again, you can see that there was previously a sign at that location before. And then the last one, which is new, is a projection sign that would be on Copenhagen Drive, and it is immediately adjacent to where the front door is. So this one, didn't have a chance to talk with the applicant when I saw this, but this one seems to be a little bit tied to the other ones, and I'm wondering if we can relocate that particular projection sign to the other side of the window, just so it's not as conflicting with the other sign location. So otherwise, all of the measurements keep us in total with the frontages of both buildings under the requirements of the 7 square feet, and the projection signs are 7 square feet less, so it meets the sign ordinance for signage.
Are there 2 businesses here?
There's 2.
One business that has multiple
You
entities.
need to be on the speaker.
Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Okay. What it is Dwaddle Galleries and Dwaddle Puzzles. And Eric Dwaddle is the artist. So we have 2 businesses combined, and then they are in, actually, one big building that has 2 separate addresses. There's 2 leases on this, in regards, like Mrs. Hess said.
The one has a First Street address and one has a Copenhagen
No.
Street address?
That whole building is all 1659,
Okay.
A, B, or C. Even the First Street has a Copenhagen address. So,
Okay.
now I'm a little surprised because they didn't happen to tell me about this change.
Oh.
Which change?
The colors and all the things that we're
Oh,
seeing
Yeah,
here that we
because,
don't have in our
okay,
book.
The Dwaddle Puzzles is a copyright sign, which means that's kind of, cast in stone, as long as the size is. The Dwaddle Gallery is a new sign, and I was under the impression that the black and gold was copyright. Now, so if they changed it, I don't know anything about that. Also, I happen to be the property manager of that, so they have not requested permission to put anything on Copenhagen Drive.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I find it kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting for us because that really reduces the time we can take on this side.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like if you as the property manager you manage the property.
So right now I have 2 hats. I'm the property
Right.
manager of the property, and I'm also the applicant.
Representative of the
Yeah.
applicant. Yeah, and I understand that. Any questions or comments people have? I mean, it sounds like maybe this is, needs a little more cooking. Am
Yeah,
I
it was
wrong?
interesting because I was getting messages from 4 different people on this package.
Right,
And I thought we were heading in the right direction, then I got more information, so.
yeah. This is a fairly significant variance from the materials that we just got
Yes.
Yeah.
this week. And, yeah, so, that we ought to be finalizing it. My concern, and so, people will know what my concern is about this, is that there's a lot of signage going up here. And part of the reason it seems that it's been leveraged, because there's kind of 2 buildings. There's a puzzle place and also a gallery.
Yeah, so what,
And I know there's different doors, but they all use the same door and there's no division of the space inside, so it's not
Yeah.
like two different businesses, I guess. Although, you know, and I wouldn't want somebody to say, I know how we could get more signage out in front of Copenhagen at First especially, which is a great address, and say, we're gonna pretend we're 2 or 3 businesses and have signage for each one, and they'll all be related, and everybody goes in there, and we have one cash register.
well, the other side of the coin is there are 2 separate leases for this. Which
Okay.
doesn't have anything,
I'm just saying what my concern was, just looking at it.
sure, and I've been where you're at. I was
Well,
up there for 10 years on that dais.
So
I
staff,
understand that.
based on what you know now, staff, what are your recommendations for handling that item now?
I would say continue it to next month.
Okay?
Mainly for the fact that you guys have a process that has to be followed, and we actually have a process that has to be followed. So when somebody changes something midstream, and they live in, they're in Utah, so they just kind of, and yeah, you get different information from different people up there.
Okay.
So that would be what I would suggest.
Would you identify yourself?
I
I'm
am
not sure
Glenn
you-
Wind.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's on the record, and
Yeah.
I appreciate your coming tonight. Anything else? Any?
I would just comment that it probably goes without saying that we would all be looking for less multiple signage, even no matter how much the frontage is. So if they are gonna be asking for, consideration in another month, that they would be considering that as they bring it back. Because in looking at this, it feels very,
Signage is directly proportional to the lineal footage of the frontage of the
Right.
building.
right. No, I understand that. I'm just, just further what Patrick was saying is sort of the distinction between multiple businesses, multiple signs, it's just complicated is all. It's so, just purely from this standpoint of looking at it visually, it's
It's
a
not
lot.
an objection that can't be overcome.
Right.
But it's
Right.
a valid
It's just
concern.
something as a consideration,
Okay.
It is.
back,
Well, I think especially given that we just had the conversation about the McLean
Exactly.
wine tasting room and the limitations on signs, because that's what I was trying to do the math, which was beyond me at this point, as to how many square feet of signs they were allowed to have, even though the
Yeah.
signs are within the size and the scale, but it's the number of them that was my question. So
And
is
the
this?
schedule. I'd like to see the schedule of signs by size so that we can see.
You should have that in your BR
Right,
guidelines.
so we
It's
can see on
explicit
that.
there.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that next time.
And just on another note,
Mhm.
I am concerned about the projection sign on Copenhagen, about the placement of it. It seems like a wall sign, if that was allowable, would be a better choice. And then I really like the gold. I didn't find the same affinity for the multicolored
I'm
chicken.
kind of the
It's a
same
little
way.
more sophisticated in the gold. But I think bottom line is we need we need accurate information.
Yeah, and I'm glad we have, this recorded, on tape, so all your friends in Utah, if they're not watching now, they'll be able to
I have
see
no
that
idea if they're
they're.
watching here or not, and it's immaterial.
It doesn't, I don't believe
I'll
so.
say, continue till next time, and maybe I'll get
Yeah.
more information.
Thanks for your time tonight, appreciate it coming
no
forward and
problem.
sharing your information.
Yeah, thank you for being present and for being candid.
Everybody okay with that?
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
thank you.
So I would move to continue this until next meeting, and they'll come back with some better information.
Correct.
Okay, I don't,
Is there a second? We can take a formal.
okay, we'll take action on it, sure.
Second?
Okay, everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye,
Aye.
thank
That's
you.
5-0.
Joey. Okay, next item is Clark and DeHaan Attorneys.
Yes. This project-
Item, 5B, 595 Alamo Pintado.
This is a office building located off of Alamo Pintado Road. It's outside of the TRC, so they have different sign standards. The signs at this location can be up to 12 square feet, and that's what you see here in this package. There's also a second sign, which is a tenant sign that the building currently does not have. The colors as you see are in a Pantheon blue and dark color, and it's located next to the Edward James Jones built sign. That'll be facing Mission Drive. This is consistent with the ordinance, and we're recommending approval.
And what are the materials? This isn't just painted on the, is this raised or dimensional?
Correct.
Oh.
Yeah, I had the same question. It looked like in the photograph here, it was, you know, it's hard to say, 'cause it's, yeah. I had the same question, but that,
Oh, dimensional, okay.
okay, good.
I can speak on that if you'd like, about the color of the acrylic. It's a
Sure,
3/8
identify yourself, please, and we welcome you to the podium,
Yeah, Brian, 805 Signs.
okay?
So it's a 3/8 inch depth acrylic letter, laser cut, and painted letter, so it will have dimension to it. It's actually the same as Life Chiropractic and Edward Jones right next door, but a little different color.
Mhm. Okay. Any questions? Okay, do I have oh, do you have comments, Steph?
Members of the public.
Members of the public in the room have any comments about it? Any other comments on the Zoom room? Thank you for your, I recognize you now because I've seen you at these meetings before. Yeah, thanks for your comments and clarification. Is there any comments or motion?
Motion to approve the signs as submitted.
Second?
Okay, moved and approved.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Passes 5-0.
I have a question. Are we approved for the directory sign as well? Is that all inclusive?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and on another note, I was wondering about McLean. I couldn't raise my hand. But does he get a 7 square foot wall sign plus a secondary wine tasting room sign underneath it?
No, it's on the same sign.
It's on the same 7 square feet.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to clarify, because our clients always want their tagline underneath, which would make it, 12 square feet or 10 square feet, but it
No,
has never.
it's on the same 7 square foot sign.
Got it.
It's
Okay,
rectangular.
perfect. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 5C. That's Mason Bennett Barber Shop, 2023 Mission Drive, also outside of the village.
Correct. This is a new business located in the area across from the market, and it's a barber shop. And there's basically 3 signs with this business. The first one is the Bennett Barber Shop sign, which is consistent with the ordinance as far as its location. The second sign is the actual barber sign that is the spinning blue and red and white element. And then the third sign is a neon sign that just basically says barber shop.
Okay.
So the zoning ordinance, sign ordinance, first for the neon sign, says you can have a neon sign, but the only thing you can say is open or closed. It can't identify the business or whatever in there. So we've advised him to remove the, and this, it's coming before you. He opened up without getting sign permits, and then no violation complaint was filed. So we are working with him to remove the neon sign and just put, if he wants one, an open close sign. The barbers, the spinning barber sign, he could have it there, but it can't be motion. The ordinance is clear that you cannot have mechanical, animated motion signs. And so the violation was actually another barber complaining about his sign spinning. So we are informing him that he either needs to remove it or just not have it motion. And so we're here today for the approval of the main sign, direction to him not to use his barber sign, and then replacing the neon sign.
Okay? Any comments?
So the rotating sign, I understand, it's not supposed to be rotating, but in your opinion, it still falls under the guidelines without the motion. So if the other barber in the complex wanted to put a pole, he could, but it would be a non-moving pole.
Right.
It's just the spinning is animation,
Spinning,
I
that's
guess, is
right.
that
Right.
right?
If I'm understanding, that was my question too. This
Yeah.
is compliant to have a barber shop thing like this as long as it doesn't have any animation. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Mostly I was thinking, are we gonna have the other barber here wanting a sign like that, and then are we,
Right.
which is okay, if it's
Yeah.
If it's allowed.
The staff said apparently
the way I
that
read it, it seemed like
it's,
it was, but.
it's sort of across the city that the poles do not turn. So this would be an exception in this area, and I know there's differences between downtown and here also.
The ordinance is clear on, across the board,
Yeah,
no animated signs, motion signs, trying to attract attention.
yeah.
And, most people want to, are familiar with the barber sign spinning, but that's just not allowed.
Yeah, okay.
Well, when I went by there, it was clearly a barber, even without the spinning.
Exactly.
And then my question is this main sign, what's the material on this? Is this like a little printed thin thing? There's no dimension to it, there's no thickness?
No, it's wood.
Flat.
The-
Is
the-
But
this,
it's flat.
This is what his sign is gonna look like.
oh,
When it's done, it
This
will
is-
be, it was, when he opened, he put this up, but he's going to be doing a, full sign with the, dimension to it.
okay, so this is a
Temporary.
This is something that's up now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he'll present that
So-
separately?
Brian's gonna be doing him a sign with the dimension, or somebody will be. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay,
So we're really not approving this, or
Right, it's,
yes, we are
just?
not approving that, but we're
This.
approving the sign, I guess, that'll take its place.
The artwork for that,
Oh, the concept, okay.
yes.
I get you.
And he
then-
just has been open a relatively short period of time, I'm not sure exactly how long. Okay, any other comments? I have a couple, I think that the spinning, barber pole is historic in a way. I mean, been around for a long, long time, and there's lots of stuff about it. But I think you're right, and we've applied it elsewhere, not only in the village, but outside the village, and so our barber poles aren't animated, and so forth. And the sign in the window that says barber shop, I'm not sure if it's neon or not, because it looks, they're really little dots of light rather than a tube of light. But,
It's kind of the LED version of the neon.
Yeah.
yeah, kind of an LED version. I was trying to find, and I know you've got I know it's clearly not allowed in the village. But I see that at 1113.5J, neon and LED lights outside the village area are prohibited if they're greater than 2 square feet, or 2 square feet in size. And so if the sign in the window is less than 2 square feet, isn't that permissible? I mean, I do know if I go around that shopping mall there's a neon Coors sign. There's open signs, but there's other neon signs in that little shopping center people put up. And sounds to me like if this one is not permitted, those wouldn't be permitted either. But I'm just looking at, is what you're looking at is some rule other than that provision, because it says, it's, neon and LED signs outside the village. Inside the village, outside the village, which is this, outside the village, it's prohibited if it's greater than 2 square feet in size.
And I believe there's a provision in there that says that it's only for open and close. And so-
The provision has to do with, it's not, yeah, I've got it here someplace.
What number was that, Patrick?
It was on 11-13-5, which is prohibited signs. And it says, it can be larger than that. It's neon signs within the village area visible from the exterior with the exception of, now that is that within the village, neon and LED signs are prohibited with the exception of one of the following for a hotel motel: no, sorry no, or vacancy. Neon and LED signs outside the village greater than 2 square feet in size. So that's another category of neon signs that are prohibited. If these, my reading of this, if they were in, this is also kind of, it doesn't say that here, but I mean, it's really kind of a backwater. I mean, it's off to, it's not in the main hubbub. It's right there, that little lane that goes out to 246. But I couldn't find anything that said, I mean, because it is a complicated set of, there's complicated ordinance for sure.
Can you reference the,
I think if you scroll down to the last one, see right there, window signs in the window adhering to glass. Oh, no, that's not the one.
That's not it.
Yeah.
Where I was, this is K, go up to J there. There's that. Yeah, it's this sentence here, neon and LED signs outside the village. So these are prohibited signs. Neon signs outside the village greater than 2 square feet. So,
So this.
absent, I mean, but that's what it is. I mean, that's okay. Whatever. Go ahead, please.
that's eliminated, or highlighted?
Yeah.
Except it's permitted in subsection 1.
13.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
I
here,
don't
let's
have-
see.
The full.
I just have, I
11.13.7 is a
well, actually,
sign.
I do, I have the full thing here. I have the
Sign
whole-
color must be consistent with the 18th century Danish Northern European design theme as illustrated in the Design Review Committee guidelines and is subject to approval by the Design Review Committee. Day glow and neon colors are not permitted.
And that's in the village. But, it's a small deal, but at least, I don't agree with the spinning, with banning the spinning. I think that's what the ordinance says, though. And so I think I don't have any problem with that. On the little light in the little sign in the window that says barbershop, I have a problem taking that down and leaving Coors up as a neon sign at Taco Rocco.
Well, I think the real question here, I agree with you, the way that this code section reads, that if maybe you could just approve it or disapprove it depending on whether it's 2 square feet in size, and we can confirm that, and then we can enforce any signs in that
If
area
that's,
that are
if that's
over
what is,
2
I mean, there may
square
be
feet.
some other provisos or but-fors, but I was trying to find that ordinance basis for, because it's complicated distinguishing between the village and non-village requirements. They're much stricter in the village, obviously, and they should be.
Well, I think that Zena's point is well taken. Let's get it clarified if
Okay.
it's 2 feet or more, then it wouldn't be allowed. And if there's some other code that we missed in that tome of codes,
Right.
maybe you can report back to us, but
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
is this time to make a motion, or is there public comment first? I can't remember.
Are there any comments regarding this here in the room? Are there any comments regarding this on Zoom room? Apparently not. Any other comments here by the committee members?
Just one, aside from, yeah, this will be a nice dimensional sign. Can we say anything about like refurbishing or painting the posts and things that it's on?
I did notice that too.
Just wondering.
Make a recommendation?
Can we do
Yeah.
that? 'Cause I'm-
Yeah.
Sure, I think that's perfectly good.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, we're approving the sign as is, except that it will have a definition, 3D definition, or we're asking to come back with the sign for approval later.
I'd say approve the final construction of it,
Yeah,
but for the concept, yeah, I mean, the design.
We'll bring it back to the next meeting.
okay.
Okay,
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to move approval of the design for the sign to be produced as per the sign ordinance requirements, with the recommendation that the sign holder be refurbished to match the nice new sign, to follow staff's recommendation, and allow the barber pole if the animation is turned off, and to, again, follow staff's recommendation to not allow the barber shop sign if it is greater than 2 square feet.
I second that.
Thank you. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
yeah. We will take a 10-minute break.
Okay.
We'll be back at, well, 8-minute break. We'll be back at 5 to 7. No, that's fine. Yep, that's right. Yep, that's good. Thank you. We did have a break last time.
We did.
The next item, if I'm accurate, is the Hadston House Inn proposal, item 6A.
This item is coming before you from the Chumash. Scott Gold is here in the audience, representing the Chumash. The renovation of the hotel involves painting, materials. If we can go to the presentation. They will be removing the, go ahead. So this is, the screen shows the overlay of the building location. And the main feature of the renovations is removing the pool in the back of the center building and creating more of a courtyard patio area with fire pits and just a lounge area. They'll retain the cross beams from the structure that was previously covering the pool as a sort of awning. And they also are adding a bocce ball court in that back area. Most of the rest of the building pretty much stays the same. If we can roll over to the next slide. These are just some of the pictures of the building. Right now it has sort of a gray-green color with darker cross beams. If we go to the next slide. This is the back of the building, pretty nondescript. That's where the employees park. Go ahead. This is an illustration of what the renovation would look like. Go ahead. These are the colors. Again, it's difficult to see, that's why you have them in front of you. More of a gray-white, and then we have the blue cross beams. It's naval blue. And then there are elements for the cross beams, the railings, and then the light fixtures as they're proposed here. If you can go to the next slide. They also are bringing in some nice artwork, stairwells, tile elements. And next slide. They will be renovating the sign out in front to take on the same theme of the building. And go ahead. And that's it. The items that we discussed in the staff report, the colors are reminiscent of other projects that have been coming before you. And we suggested that they consider coming up with a different color scheme for the center building, just to add some dimension and difference, one of the things within the policies is being consistent but not being monotonous, or and so the applicant's here tonight to talk about that. The other element was the sign, or the lighting within, around the doors. We asked if we could see a different element, because it doesn't look compliant with the dark sky requirements. So those were the two items that we made recommendations to. We didn't see nothing came in response to that. So tonight we're here to talk about the colors and the lighting and the improvements that they're making to the project. We did not take this to the Planning Commission because it was pretty much a renovation rather than a full restructuring of the building, and so we didn't need to take it back to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Lloyd, can I ask, when you say the center, you mean this?
Correct.
This one here, okay.
This, so this.
Okay, yeah, so that first.
Scott?
Yes.
Would you like to, we appreciate the materials, they're very well presented, and
Thank you, good evening.
I appreciate your efforts and the efforts of your colleagues to put them together for us.
Sure.
Obviously, as you were here earlier when we had the conversation about the blue and so forth. This is a naval is a much darker blue than we talked about, I guess. I was confused because I saw on the staff report, it was off-white and navy. And then I went and looked in the elevations here, the renderings, and it didn't look blue to me. That's all. That's just a sort of an observation. You want to talk to us about what?
Sure, let me walk you through.
What went into the selections of the project, the decisions you made?
Sure, thank you for allowing me the time tonight. I wanted to first say that as a past member of the Architectural Review Board and a resident here, we certainly understand and want to keep the soul and the roots of the city. This is really, in our opinion, a combination of the colors that keep true to our European model. The Hadston, the word Hadston, is a rail town in Denmark. And so that's where a lot of our inspiration came from. Rail, locomotive, train. So that's where, again, a lot of our inspiration came from. We have a wide variety of colors and textures, including stone, lots of brick, and the timber as well. So there are many colors and again, a big palette and a lot of different textures here. So in keeping with the historical feel, this is where we came. I actually wanted to start, if we don't mind, with the lighting, if that's okay. We were actually, our company has been awarded the Night Sky Protection Award through the Save Our Stars Committee of the Women's Watch. So we are obviously very respectful of the ordinance. The light itself, as you can see in front of you, is actually in compliance of the ordinance. On the building itself, we have this. When the light is about 10 inches below the balcony and the eaves of the building, of the roofs. So there is no light that will get into, that will bleed into the sky.
Is there a rendering here that shows?
Yes, sir, on page number 14.
Page 14, it looks like this page. It's on the screen above you.
Oh, okay.
So there is no light above the horizontal. So in other words, the balcony and the roof overhangs would prevent any lights going above to the horizontal.
Okay.
And again, it's only.
Can you clarify on the rendering on page 10, like the approximate position of the lights relative to the half timber above the door? Is it below the half timber above the door, or is it a?
Oh, I see it.
Sounded kind of like you were explaining that.
So in there,
So is it like
if you look at where the guest rooms are,
Right, yes.
in the distance, they're actually on the cross portion of the timber there.
So they're above the door?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So they'd be above the doors and in that little shadowed area?
In the shadowed area.
Okay.
The top of the light will be in that shadowed area. So again, there's
So they're their highest point of the guest door,
Correct.
basically, right?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we're comfortable because there won't be any bleed. So that. Sorry.
I think that picture also shows, I was confused because blue is not the timbering color. And that's what I was thinking, I was looking for blue to be a timbering color, and I see, you can see it there on the railings up on the second floor, that blue. But the half timbering is actually their iron ore color.
Right.
Correct. We're using the blue for the entry doors and the railing.
Yeah, right.
But it's also shown there on the trellis.
The trellises too.
As well.
Yes.
Right, it's the blue's the accent, not the half timber.
We have several different trellises around, and so it's going to be shared between the blue and the charwood stain.
Right. And obviously changing the current style of the railings or the not just the handrails, but the
Safety ground.
yeah.
Yeah.
The guardrails,
From
correct.
the
Yeah.
Guardrail.
traditional-
Yeah, that was,
Thank you.
That was my question, so they're new,
There will be changes as well, and again, to have the personality to come full circle to the rail, if you look at, if you take a look at those rails, they actually look like train tracks. A lot of thought and design went into this.
Okay,
Thank you, that's all I had to say about the lights. And then for the colors, again, we were doing a lot of homework in regards to the historic colors of Hadston buildings, Hadston in Denmark. And this is the tone and the palette that we came up with. The main color, which is white, which is Olympus white, is not a bright white. It's very different from what's represented in many of the different buildings around town that you may see. But the interesting thing about that is when you look at the front rendering, there are so many other colors and textures inside. This is I would hardly describe this as a white building, because it's a short building. It's only 2 stories. And because there's so much roof and there's so much natural wood and beams, it's, like I said, I would hardly call this a white building. Lots of stone, lots of beautiful old brick, a lot of nice stain.
Did your team consider the possibility of the center building being a different color than the white? Is that part of the conversation that you considered?
We considered, and I was hoping that through conversation and an explanation of where the scheme and the idea came from, I would get some buy-in on that one.
in the renderings, it looks like it looks speckled almost, the white face of the wall, exterior wall. Is there material in the white, or is it?
I believe that would just be the texture.
Yeah, okay.
Because we have a sample tab, so I don't want to.
That's fine.
Lead you in the wrong direction.
yeah, because it kind of looks in this as though it's
Yeah.
some kind of heavily textured, but I did go and drive.
Well, we will have the texture of the building.
Right.
That is
Right.
the rough kind of bumpy feel.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I cruised your parking lot earlier, so, and, did the walk around.
Oh, good.
Um,
And then, of course, when all these colors will tie into the mosaic tile and the stone of the steps to show some real personality there, and of course, it gives a very rich feel too.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the reference to the mosaic, where did that come from?
We were just looking for an upgraded feel and an upgraded design element. It's fun and it's pretty, and that's what I came from.
Thank you.
I have a question on the flagpole light. I noticed it says they have up lights on them.
Thank you for bringing those up. The flagpoles have been removed from the project.
Oh, they're completely gone?
They're gone.
Okay.
Because we had a very big problem with that very situation. And so, being respectful to the night sky, there is a new product out there which looks like a UFO, and you put it at the very top and it shines down. But that would take away from our classic solving. And so we wanted to be respectful.
And I would like to have Nancy weigh in just to make sure that I understand that those sconces are dark sky compliant. Hope they are. I've got more questions about the tiles. If this was my house and I was doing a stairwell, I'd go, these are awesome. I love having, the different mosaics on the faces. And I spent some time doing research trying to figure out if I could find anything in kind of old Danish that had any application at all. And I even reached out to a contact in Denmark who looked in Danish on websites for me, because I'm definitely not, can't do that. The only place we could come up with an image of the face of steps having a kind of veneer or finish was a brick look to it, which was pretty cool with patterns on it that I thought would be a potential and this was in an 18th century Danish building, a complement to your existing brick, because as much as these look great and are a really fun visual, they, to me, are quite outside of our design guidelines. For the old world Danish, this is much more contemporary in its aesthetic. But it's a fun and really would be a nice concept to have something on the face of the stairs, and I understand that. I can show you a picture of what that looks like, or email that, but that's the best I could find of any option with any stairs with a face on it, decorative face on it.
Thank you for your feedback. There's certainly a tie-in between the tiles that we see here and the accent wall in the shower. So inside the guest room, there would be a tie-in, but certainly open to conversation about something that you feel would be more cohesive or would show some more continuity.
But the view of these stairs.
The view of the stairs are not visible from the street.
It's not from the street.
Yeah.
That was kind of my question.
Esther, is there a modern interpretation of that pattern in terms of, could it be replicated in a more modern tile pattern?
I think so. Let me see if I can find the picture here.
'Cause, yeah, it is very handsome. And you're saying that this motif carries through into the guest room?
Right, we have continuity from the outside that goes inside of the guest room too.
Yeah, and it doesn't face the street. So.
Right. These stairwells don't face the street. But certainly, happy to see the sample.
Okay, I'm looking, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, I am looking.
I'll just comment about, I think that the blue is handsome, it's very sophisticated, and I do think the stains and things, to me, it's again a very nice package. It's very well thought out, and I don't know that changing the color of the center building would even be that noticeable, given that you're not really walking down there at that end of Mission, you're in the car. And you're either in traffic waiting to get into town, or you're speeding by. So I don't have an issue necessarily with it.
I don't either. I think it's overall just a very handsome upgrade.
Thank you very much.
And beautiful. And my opinion also is that it's okay to have little accents that. Because if maybe you walk into a cool store in Copenhagen, a home store might have. So it's not the large picture general architecture and things. It's a little accent, but it ties in. So it's about guest experience, because we are here. So a little bit I think is fine. Not like the whole thing being some crazy modern thing. But my opinion, I think is pretty handsome. At the same time, saying if there is something that's like this, that is Danish and relates, then that's way better, all the better. So that's my opinion.
I think too, what makes it something that isn't like as troubling to me as it could be is because the direction that it faces. It's very much of a focal point for your guests, but not to the outward appearance of people going by the building, or even really going to the restaurant, which looks like it'll be a lot of fun back there where you're remodeling.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree that it's a great package, and I like it. It may not be quite as visible unless traffic is really backed up, but it's really at that Western Gateway. I just think that's a great location, and I think it has the timbering, and I like, I was concerned we were talking about blue half timbers again, and we're not, but the blue in there is it really works, the way you have it, where you have it. So,
Thank you.
anyway, I was impressed with the package. Other comments?
I have a question and a concern because it's back to that white thing. And, driving the area and looking at it, your neighbors across the street, although a different kind of aesthetic with less color and less texture, is still very white. It would make that entryway into Solvang very white with all the buildings there of that kind of same family. And I'm kind of hoping that there might be an alternative that you could use for the body of the building and maintain the same kind of color palette that would be a contrast to your neighbors across the street.
To your points, just a few moments ago, because of the angle of the property, really the main focal point is a lot of timber, and because it's such a low building, it's a lot of that beautiful wood. Across the street, most of it, it's a great big white wall, which this is not. And again, because of the greenery and because of the brick and because of the stone, I just feel that this is, it's not a white building. We have some white, yes, you're definitely right. But there's so much else besides white. And again, this color is certainly a bit darker, if you will, compared to what is across the street.
I would ask if we would be thinking of that color as a white, if it wasn't called Olympus white, because to me it does look a little bit more of a gray tone, or I wouldn't actually describe it as white, especially when you see it compared to the white paper. But I also wouldn't go as far as saying it's that much different than some of the other things that we've discussed. So.
Are these trees are gonna stay this mature, correct? I mean, they're pretty. Are you gonna feather them back, or, I mean, there's a lot of, if you look at this image, it's on sheet 8 in the top right. That whole facade is basically covered in green trees.
They will be manicured,
Yeah.
but they will stay.
Yeah.
And again, that gives us just a bit more dimensional, it gives
Yeah.
it a bit more texture and color too.
I think part of the elevations that I'm looking at are the photos that you see of the existing where the employee parking is, where there is a lot of white building that's not necessarily there on, or that kind of lighter colored body color. It's not necessarily right on Copenhagen, but it's pretty visible from some other areas as you go around the corner. So that's what had me bring it up. And if you want to see this picture, it finally landed.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, so if you want to approach, you
Yeah,
can take
come
a
up.
look. And I can toss it around. This is a historic Danish building with the pattern on the inset, and it's kind of a brick pattern. And I can share that with you.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. Let me share that.
Oh, yeah, it has a cool boutique to it.
Yeah, it's much more subtle, definitely.
Yeah, very similar.
It's in a church in, I don't know which town. And it's, like I said, it's a Danish, it's an attachment in Danish, but I will share it with you if you'll leave with, oh yeah, perfect. You bet.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of where I was getting at was, yeah, this is absolutely historical. And I think what this does is it takes it and makes it a modern interpretation of that. And so I do think, and again, because it's not blaring to the street, to me it seems like it's within reason, it's somewhat consistent. I don't know that it would have to be monochromatic. I mean, I still, there's some interest to the new design that, otherwise it's just like every other building.
Thank you.
Okay? Any other comments?
No, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. This has been an impressive presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate that you've got everything here together.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a really nice enhancement to the property, whatever color and tile is selected, with, given what you're showing here. And, it's just nice to have these improvements coming to the various kind of significant buildings, large buildings
It is,
in our
it's
small
it's
town.
certainly been there for a long time, and
Yeah.
like you mentioned before, it's the gateway. And so we have the opportunity to really make something wonderful and special, and it's a nice welcome to our town.
Yes, it is.
And thank you for patience.
Sure.
Yeah, it makes
Love
our,
that.
yeah, makes it much
Thank you.
easier.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Any comments on Zoom? Final comments?
No, I'm supportive of it as presented
presented.
personally.
With the notion they can consider this, the historic stuff, which is really intriguing how it is this very similar kind of deal. Every step is a little different and interesting. It's common material, that's great.
I think that's amazing that you found that.
Yeah, I do.
I didn't find it, I found people who found it.
Well, it's still, it's
Same
impressive.
thing.
It's like-
And that was the only thing we could find with stuff, with anything on stair.
But that just speaks to how much you care.
Okay, is there a motion for?
Yes.
We could do it in yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, we could do it in a number of ways. We can obviously approve as presented, approve as presented with a, with a suggestion to look at that. I'm not sure, what do you have in mind?
Okay, so, I then will make a motion to, if this is the appropriate time, to approve the project as presented with the recommendation that you, consider other options for the stair tile bases.
Yeah, we're not requiring
No?
a change, but it's
Yeah.
just a consideration, one last look and so forth, following up on some of that stuff. Otherwise, it's I think that would be your motion, approval as presented.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think also down the road, that becomes kind of like a PR story that helps you tell about this property and about the renovation. It's just kind of a cool thing to we found this traditional Danish stuff. So I agree, I think it's great as a recommendation.
I'll second Esther's
There's a
motion.
second, okay. Been moved and seconded.
Everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
Passes 5-0.
Esther, you can send that picture to.
yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you. We're back, item 6B, we're back at 1623 Mission Drive, the Park Building. Shade screen for the courtyard.
Correct. Again, we're back at the Mission Drive building, park building. There is a lot of activity going on there with tenants moving in and doing renovations and things within each one of the lease spaces. And there is a courtyard in the center of the building that is probably going to have quite a bit of activity. The applicant is proposing a shade structure. You saw the materials in your staff reports. If you can go to the next one. So this is an illustration of what the shade structure would look like. And we do have, if you'd like, the actual panels are here laying on the chairs. So it's a nice combination of colors with the black and white matching the building and then the red being the Copenhagen red of the flag.
Okay, but not white, blue, and gray.
No,
Okay. I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
I was looking at the picture.
Well, and
Yeah.
in the description, it's white, blue, and gray.
Great, yes,
Okay.
yes. And so we're, these are the elements here, and we're recommending approval of this. Normally, we wouldn't have something like this come to the DRC, mainly because it's not from the street or whatever, but because you can't see this on oblique angle from the street, we brought it before you.
Okay. Any comments to add to the presentation by staff on this proposal?
Other than sharing the samples, if that's desirable, we will show you.
Sure.
What did you, let's go down there.
Just
Yeah.
introduce yourself and.
Except for the, they have to be mine.
Okay.
Is this the same
And we're gonna-
red that's on the existing?
Members are gonna be
Yeah.
going down and inspecting the material. You can see it in the video that's being shown.
So it does align.
This is the material that is used, is it a linen kind of thing?
I have not.
It's, yeah, it's more of a plasticky,
Cable rail.
Okay.
but it's,
Piece here.
you know, for durability.
Mhm. And the colors are red, gray, and white?
Oh, gotcha. Who built this? I'm asking because I need to get.
Superior awning and mossing.
Oh.
Lori, what are the dimensions of those?
4x4.
4x4, and you have,
Yeah, I know.
4x4, 5x4, and 6x4.
so you have something like
Superior
30 or something like that, or?
Because
Oh, yeah, no, it's overall-
I'm just looking at the drawing.
Overall, it's 26 feet long by 20 feet wide.
Okay,
And these panels will be supported by stainless cable railing at 4 feet on center,
okay,
along the 26-foot dimension.
The lights are already up inside.
It's basically the same, or very similar to what's already existing in the
That's right.
other, in the adjacent courtyard. Yeah, which is cool.
okay, okay, good.
And just to note that those colors are white, red, and a kind of,
The gray, yeah,
yeah, variegated gray.
good.
I think it'll be really kind of a noticeable color pop from the street that's gonna really draw people's eyes
Right.
into it too. And it's fun.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
as it relates to the parking lot, looking across this, Laura said, that obscure angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Cool.
Any other comments from the public? Any comments on the Zoom space? Apparently not. So I'm open to discussion here among the committee members.
I would motion to approve it.
Okay,
That's it.
moved and seconded to approve the park building shade screen as proposed.
Everybody in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It looks great. Item number 6C is 1631 Mission Drive, renovating the so-called Yellow Cottage on this location. This is right next to, I would call it the Old Touch Restaurant, but it's right on 246. And we have a plan that's been distributed regarding the renovation of that. It's really a business office now, and it would be changed into a tasting room or tasting space, wine tasting space. Lori, why don't you give us the summary? It's on
Sure.
page 57.
Yeah. Again, this is 1631 Mission Drive, the Yellow Cottage. It was obviously a home at one time. It has been a commercial building, office for a number of years, and now it's being brought forward to be renovated and become a tasting room. It'll include a wraparound porch that will provide outdoor seating areas also, and the railing is probably the most important feature for this project. It's basically, the best example would be the railing that's at Succulent now, and that little patio that they built out towards the sidewalk. It's wood framed with a metal cross hatching hog wire is, commonly referred to. And they will also, within this area, be putting in French doors where the bay windows were, and also French doors in the other location. If you can go to the next one. This is what the house looks like right now. On the dais is paint boards.
These things here.
That's the current color, and they want to continue with that. There were a couple of shingles that had more of an orangey color to them. They're removing those. The white and yellow would be continue. As the patio comes out, there will be some wood work done, and then we can see the next slide. This is reminiscent. This is the succulent building example. They won't be doing the brickwork on the base. It will be just some wood, cross wood on there. If you can go to the next one. And this is for landscaping. They are going to take the landscaping palette that was in front, that has been put in front of the PAR building, into the grass area between the patio and the sidewalk. There is a historic little stone wall that will remain, and that will just bring the building out closer to the street and have more activity in that new patio area that they're proposing to build. So this is, staff's recommending approval of this. I think they've made a good attempt to retain the building, which, there were proposals to tear it down and put something else up. And we encourage them to reconsider that, because it does break up what's happening along that street and does have an old historic element to it. And so we'd like to move forward with the project.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public? Yes, please.
Hello there, my name is Tony Cano. I work for the SEMA Corp. And it was one of those things that we all sat down and said, hey, let's do our best to preserve this building. I believe you all know Hans Larsson. He's been in that building for quite some time. So he's been quite intimate with it. And in order to use it from a commercial standpoint and for a retail purpose, we felt like we remove that bay window out front, put some French doors, maybe perhaps some doors that would bifold open. So when we do have nicer weather, not 100 degrees, we can open the building up a bit. Retain the colors. At some point, we're going to have to consider a new roof. But there is some charm with the wood shake roof that's currently on the building.
Okay. Any other questions?
And the orange shutters are going away? They won't be replaced, no orange accent?
Not at this time,
Okay.
no.
And did you want to retain the color just to avoid us telling you what color?
Well, that's what I've heard most of the evening. I think it's a safe bet to retain that color. Just a clarification on the railing, though, I would see that it would be a redwood stain color, more of a rich brown, rather than the darkness that you see on the succulent railing.
Okay.
So keep with the earth tones.
Okay.
And kind of going with the white trim. I had a question on the roof. Okay, because it did look like it was nearing replacement time, and how, if there's any comments on that, or if that's just down the road still yet.
I think it's one of those things where once we start some renovation, we see what shape it's in. I don't know that it's leaked. There's no water stains in the ceiling, so it'll be one of those factors that we'll look at, maybe even some simulated wood shake roofing products, or simulated slate. There's also a triple layer composition shingle that has quite a bit of depth and style to it. I think there's some attractive options if we do come to that point.
Well, the renovations are really needed on the building. It's kind of the, the poor stepchild there on the block. And I think that what you're proposing is gonna look great, it's gonna fit better, it's gonna be more functional, and I think it's just overall gonna look really nice too. I wanted a little bit of clarity on the concrete planter that you showed. I wasn't quite clear. Can you just tell me again where that's gonna be located, the one that kind of mimics the park building planter?
Is that the wall you're talking about?
Can you pull up the slides again, please?
Yeah, I didn't understand that one.
I was under the impression that you were
Oh,
just
no,
talking
no,
about
this is just
planting.
for plant palette.
It's just the plant
Yeah.
palette that
Oh,
we
it's
were
just the
showing.
plant palette. Okay, I
Yes.
thought you said the planter.
No.
Okay.
No.
No,
Masks.
no, this is just because it's part of the whole parking lot and everything else just flows from the park building to this. They are going to take those drought tolerant plants and put it in the space between the patio and the sidewalk.
Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's
I just
exactly
couldn't
right.
figure out how a concrete planter fit in. That's,
Sorry.
and it doesn't. Let's see. And Tony, I think you have clarified the railings, which was another question that I had. And
I think
other
the
than
other great use of the decking and railing allows for easier egress for ADA requirements from the parking lot and also to the front of the building. And maybe even to the side as it relates to planning and future consideration.
Yeah, the planning commission is also passing on this, is that how that?
No, this is because it's the same building, they're not changing the
Oh,
parking
you,
lot.
yeah, that's right, you say that in
Yeah.
here. That's right.
We did not take this to the planning commission.
Okay,
One consideration that we've talked about as a group is in that particular photo, you'll see a very stark white building. Is there any possibilities for murals or other elements within the design guidelines that would allow us to downplay that or tone it down on our side of the property line?
The city does allow for murals, there are a number of them, but they need to be consistent with the Danish theme. You know, if they want to come forward with a idea for something that would soften that side of the building, we definitely
and that
bring
would,
it before you.
yeah,
I think that would be our preference,
Okay.
is a mural.
Tony, is that building right on the property line? Is that?
It is, maybe inches away.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it'll be just a few. I actually would kind of, as much as I love art and public art and stuff, is there some kind of cool fine you can talk them into allowing you to plant there? Because to me, it seems like something more organic would, but I absolutely understand that's a pretty big, tall, stark white wall there. But it seems like something organic would work really well to tone
Yes, I
that
think we
down.
can find something that would take the intense heat, because I'm sure there's a tremendous amount of heat, and a seasonal planting. So we just
Yeah.
have to do some research and find what'll grow 15, 20 feet
Yeah.
high.
I'm in the same camp on that. I'd rather see a hedge of some greenery along that property line wall. It looks like between the deck and the wall, you've got some, maybe 3 feet. So maybe that's enough to put a hedge in there of some sort, some water helpful hedge. I don't know, there's not many of those. The cypress that I think of, but I don't know.
Well,
Any others?
I've got a great planting in my backyard that has grown to 10 feet over the period of about a year and a half, and it's very vertical. And, I think of something like that as an organic
Yeah.
It's just
material.
softer.
I have a couple in mind. Xylosmus is one, and it'll stay evergreen.
Right,
It's
exactly.
not deciduous.
Yeah, I can't remember what mine's called right now.
okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, just one, and it's not to say that, there's anything wrong with what you're doing, but it almost seems like a little bit of a missed opportunity to go with that's as beige as it gets.
Funny you should mention that.
I don't know,
We have some alternate colors, thinking that, based on some comments we'd received, that maybe if we went to a gray body with a white trim, that maybe that might be a possible consideration.
So the body is the gray.
Yes.
Oh, it's a different white too.
It's the same white as the par building.
Oh, okay, that's
And the
helpful.
same-
So,
And the same gray.
okay, you want to say it at the mic, just for our people? Because we have a huge audience watching at home.
Basically, the gray is the same gray as the trim of the bar building, and the white is the same as the white. It would just be opposite. So you'd have the white Mandarin Touch building, the white bar building, and then a gray building in between. So
And what would that mean for the railing and the little deck and stuff? Would that then go with the darker trim?
Yeah, I think
Darker
we'd go,
stain.
yeah, probably a darker gray perhaps, if we went through that color scheme. So we had anticipated there'd be comments about going to the same old color, quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, the beige is super boring.
It is.
I wonder also, I mean, it's great that you did this, and you used real paint and everything.
Yeah.
Maybe if we could have 2 more variations to look at.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
You know, we are here for conceptual approval, and so your comments are well taken. I would assume that we could proceed with the improvements as long as we're working with colors
Mm-hmm.
on a more communal.
I'm sure that's possible, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll continue to look at those options and consult with you, or you consult with us.
Great.
So at this point, then we'd be continuing this till our next meeting? Is that what you're comfortable with and requesting?
Well, I
then?
think what the building owners would prefer is if we can get the improvements, the opening of the French stores.
The design approval.
The design, the improvements for the deck and things of that sort, that we can proceed with that while we work through the color variations.
Yeah, so the architectural revisions.
I'm fine
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Yeah, that sounds good to me, but you want to,
Brian?
So the motion would be to approve the architectural improvements and then,
as presented, yeah.
as presented, and then look at, say, two more variations of this color.
Sure.
That the trim can continue to be white, I think, or.
And I'd like to introduce, other colors for the railing. I wouldn't see those as being redwood at this point if we change to these colors.
I think it could be really even more sophisticated, and I second that.
Yeah, and I think it might also include, by the way, your plant materials, if you want that to be part of the approval process, or you've just given the general direction about.
Do a mini art landscape plan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are plant approvals required today?
No.
No,
No.
okay, so no, I think we're just looking
Okay.
at the.
Okay, so the motion would be to approve the architectural plans as presented, and then look at color variations
That sounds great.
next round.
Okay. And that's been, did you second that then?
I did.
Yes.
Okay, been moved and seconded.
Okay, everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, just,
This
just-
is a little late to ask this, I should have already, but any lighting on here is dark sky compliant?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I should have already done, I knew if Nancy was here, it was
Yeah.
already okay, I took that for granted, but.
Well, now I have a trusted brochure that I can take back to the office.
There we go.
And if in doubt, she's very knowledgeable.
yeah,
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
thank you both. Good work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. We have a proposal, item 7A, which is at 1925, 1927 Windmill Lane. It's the proposed Samsung Medical Clinic. This is a preliminary review by the Design Review Committee. This has not been presented to planning or whatever, but right now, I think it's just sort of to get initial reaction to the conceptual design that has been that's presented to you in the materials. Is that right,
Correct.
Lori?
Yeah, Brian Cannell is the architect from Santa Barbara. He's here tonight to walk you through the concept plan for the Sampson Medical Building. This building will be located on Windmill Drive or Windmill Lane. It will cover 2 lots on the last remaining lots along that cul-de-sac. It's a 30,000 approximate square foot building, 3-story. The first story is basically like a basement, and then you work up from there. And they proposed about 150 parking spaces with on-site, but they also had, in the sketches, showed an overflow area, which could be problematic because the city owns that lot, and there's other things that would have to come into play to use that area. Brian, I'd like to turn it over to the architect to talk about some of the design elements of his project and get your input.
Okay,
Okay.
welcome.
You all hear me?
Welcome, yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So Sansum Clinic is exploring consolidating their services and expanding them in the valley. And so this site is something that is very desirable to them. Our exercise has been to really do a form and fit and see if they'll fit. Their program requirements are about 32,000 square feet, and that includes the country clinic, the Ridley Tree Cancer Center, and then multiple specialty clinics like urology and cardiology, that kind of thing. So clearly with the height limit on this site and the parking requirement of 1 space for every 200 square feet, we needed to take some of that square footage and put it in the basement. So the above grade square footage that you would actually see represents about 23,500, something like that. So that's important to note. This study was done to explore the possibility of achieving the required parking, utilizing that parcel, that open space parcel to the left on your screen. And Lori really, I think, has made it pretty clear to us that that's just a non-starter and that we shouldn't consider it. So we aren't showing this, right now, if we can, just put a big red X on the left side of the screen, because what we would be proposing then would be consolidated on the site. In order to achieve then the number of parking spaces needed for the overall square footage, we actually are proposing a parking platform that would be 1 level above the surface parking. So I'll show you that in a section in a moment, but you can see here on the right side, the upper right, basically the ramp that it would take to get cars up to that upper level in order to essentially stack the parking and achieve the necessary parking, which is about 157 parking spaces for the square footage that's proposed. And then the building footprint really is pushed all the way to the west. And it would preserve, but there are a number of really nice oaks there along that property boundary, that western property boundary. Those would all be preserved. And we would obviously plant the parking area per the ordinance. The one thing that we aren't showing planting on is that parking level, that upper level. And I think it's clear to me, and we'll go to the next sheet if we can, perhaps, because I think it'll explain it. It's clear to me that we need to have some kind of screening. If we look at the section there at the bottom, which is looking west, this, by the way, is not meant to reflect architecture. I really think this is a site planning exercise that I want your comments on, but the massing is essentially represented here, that 23,600 square feet. And I think we would want to have some dominant entry element. Our firm did the cancer center, the Ridley Tree Cancer Center down in Santa Barbara, if any of you have seen that. And we want this building to be a very elegant, timeless building, and we can talk about style, I think, after when you all comment. But going back to that parking level, you can see that in that section, how you would have this one raised platform of parking. So I think it would be important to screen that with some sort of vegetative screening that would run along it, and also possibly have some planter boxes or something that would create some additional planting on that platform. One of the things that's nice about the platform is that it actually will facilitate creating a separate entrance for some of the clinic functions. So for instance, this might be the entrance to the Ridley Tree Cancer Center, or it could be the entrance to the urgent care center. The upper section shows what that raised platform of parking would look like from the grade level. So, and it also illustrates that sort of, it's hard to see, but basically it sort of follows a blue line that you can see. And that's basically the line of Mission Drive that's along there. So again, you can really see that in the lower section. You can see the car, there's a truck and a car and a bike rider on Mission Drive, and that is almost right at the level of that raised parking platform. So I think the screening of that is obviously going to be very important. The other thing that's important is whatever mechanical equipment we have is completely screened. So I think the design, I think, will lend itself to making sure that we have an adequate mechanical well that will hide any equipment from Mission Drive. And that basically is the concept. And I'll be happy to answer questions and point out any other issues that you have. But I would love the committee's comments relative to what they see as the most appropriate approach from a design standpoint. We know that just next to us there is sort of a Spanish colonial, I guess, architecture, and then of course across the street, the remodel of the shopping center is a little bit more rustic, whatever maybe the right term is. So I'd love the committee's thoughts on what they'd like to see in this building. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Great.
So just to put this in context, this is a conceptual review. This is a thought-invoking process.
Right.
Project will be ultimately submitted as a development plan. It will go through environmental review. There are issues tied to traffic and visual, to archaeology, all of the elements that we would do in environmental review. And during that period of time, we would bring that conceptual plan to you again, because it'll obviously have much more detail to it. It'll go to the Planning Commission and then ultimately come back to you for final review. So we have a deliberative process here, and this is just to move forward with it.
I would just comment that, it's mentioned at least in your notes that the proposal might be for a Spanish style architecture, which I like the idea of. I know that the code sort of dictates that we prefer to keep the Danish architecture in the village as much as possible, but adhere to more sort of California Spanish style outside of that. So I like that. It's a big building for sure, and the parking is it's an interesting concept. I'd have to see probably more. It's an interesting project for sure, but for me, I like the idea of the Spanish style architecture.
Yeah, I have thoughts about this too. I think number one, to have really wonderful medical facilities with our aging population, myself included. I think it's really crucial and vital, and whatever we can do to help, make that possible is great. these second level parking areas can be almost the ugliest things on earth. And I agree with the Spanish architecture. If there's something to mitigate that just boring, big, expansive concrete, like elements from the building tied in, like, overhanging trellises or plantings or something that makes it almost feel, I mean, it can't be a park, but gives it softness and ties to the architecture and then feels like part of, the entire project other than a slab of concrete with lines painted on it. So that would be my hope for it.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at in the book, so this is all kind of just digesting this and a little bit off, on the fly with the comments. So I'm not really as prepared as I would like to be. I concur that a kind of Spanish aesthetic would, the kind of mission. I think mission is style is more what I think of, and doing something to soften the rooftop. I can't quite tell if you're in a truck going along there, would you be able to see the big parking lot, or would that be out of the view shed? Do you have a concept on that at this time?
Well, I think that you're going to see, if we can go back to the site plan, just for a moment. So, I think that, there is what, 200 plus feet of parking there that is a long run. And so you're going to see that, and it's critical that it be, I think, screened and landscaped. And so, I've depicted that along here. I really see that as being, a pretty dense row of trees that would run that entire length of the property, to screen not only the parking, but even to screen the building. I mean, I think it would be nice if it had that row of planting. It would be wonderful if we could even plant on the highway side, but I doubt if that's going to be possible. But we have the room, we have 15 feet to plant that. So I think it will be visible unless it is screened.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I think that is really important. And back to the good stuff is, I think we all appreciate having the best medical care around, and having that all consolidated there just seems like a wonderful location for it. If the parking can be addressed and be provided at adequate levels on site, because I think that is going to make the neighbors much more ready to support the project as well.
Can I ask a question about the lot on the backside? I know that has the big red X in it. So, Lori, what you were saying earlier is that's city properties, that's not part of it right now. So
Correct.
in order for them to obtain that would have to be to make some kind of a deal with the city
Correct.
to purchase parking, okay? And that's why you're not recommending it, because it's,
And technically, the way that he has designed the parking structure, because remember, you're talking about the upper platform, but there's parking underneath that platform also.
Right.
So it's right around about 154 spaces illustrated in this concept that he's brought forward, and that meets the requirements barely. And it's surprising that the medical needs so much parking, but people are there for a long time. You got patients rolling over and in the meeting their appointments and everything else. So this is going to be a lot of additional traffic in the area, but we want to be able to maintain it all on site.
So back to that city lot, what is I don't know, I'm having a hard time identifying what that is. So I guess it's just kind of the lot that is adjacent to it. And is there a purpose for that at this time?
When the homes were built in that area, and I forget the name of it, but it was
Mill?
Yeah, and so that was excess land that was dedicated because they wanted to make sure that at that time that you could still see the windmill that's down on that, on that street. So that's a view corridor. As you're coming into town, you're starting to get the elements that are coming into Solvang. And so that, as part of that subdivision, that piece of land was dedicated. It's open space.
Thank you for explaining that.
And that's why there's a lot of trees
Yeah.
were planted in there, and it looks like a park, but it isn't a park, but it has that view corridor to the hills and everything else. It's the entry into Solvang.
Well, and that's what I was just gonna say, what I really like is that you're not driving in through a corridor that's very high density into Solvang with no visual of our beautiful rural surrounding area, not to mention a windmill. I think the screening is very important. I think parking is very important. And if I understand correctly, this is the scale of the building is what's needed to meet the current providers. This is not looking at a area to continue to grow the Sansom, collaborative there.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, no, Sansom has worked very, very hard. They've been working for months and months on their program needs for the valley. And so this does reflect their needs looking out into the future. So the problem that they have now is, obviously that they're in two different buildings. The Ridley Tree Center is in one building and the Country Clinic is another, and they have limited specialty. So this is projecting the needs of the community out into the future, and hopefully this is a one-time endeavor that will meet the needs of the community for a long time.
Okay, thank you for explaining that, because I hadn't gotten that the first time around. That makes a difference too. So I guess that said, that I'm excited about the concept of having something like this be consolidating this level of medical care in our community. And I think there are important things to mitigate here, but overall, it seems like this is a concept that can bring that to fruition and provide the parking.
Yeah, and I agree with the comments made earlier also about supporting the mission style here. I think there are directions that we go out of our way to contrast it from the architecture downtown for the old historic Danish model that we're charged to protect in the downtown area. I think traffic is an issue there, and you know that you're going to. Obviously, one of the things I've seen a lot of, and that's you're probably going to do something like that, but I've seen a lot of big parking spaces like that be somewhat softened, obviously with plant materials, but with solar panels that provide shade to the cars on the top level and around here. That's a good thing, as well as generating electricity. And that can be done in a way, I think, that's not industrial.
So I have a totally different perspective. I do think that the mission style and the adjacent building should be followed. I think it's really well done, the Montecito Bank and Trust Edward Jones building. The detailing of the roof line, the details around that whole structure is really well done. And so if you use that as a design guideline, that would be probably great. What I would say about the parking is that I do not think these single level ramp structures end up looking good. And I think there's too much concrete to hold up the weight of the vehicles. And while the lower level obviously provides some covered parking, some shade, at night it's a serious concern because they're dark spaces where people tend to linger and loiter. And I'm not sure that your neighborhood is going to like that right adjacent to that structure. I'm wondering if why can't Sansom at least consider spending the money to do a subterranean surface plus subterranean one level parking structure, and then they would have sufficient parking because they'd have effectively two levels, one subterranean and one surface, and then you wouldn't have the issues at grade level.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, if we could switch to this section again, I think it will help me answer it. You can see that we're already having to cut into the site a little bit. If you look on that lower section, you can see how that parking area that is closest, that has the platform closest to Mission Drive, we are already going to be excavating into the site to lower that. So my concern really is the feasibility of going underground, because it probably is twice the amount of money to build that same number of parking spaces down underneath the parking as opposed to above it. So that would be the concern with going that direction. And it's just a lot of dirt also that has to be obviously then taken out of the site and moved.
As much as I would love to see something subterranean, because I don't think any of us likes a big flat parking lot, I also have lived here long enough to have seen that area flood. So I'm not sure how that works with excavating it there to that extent, because it brings it down to, kind of that Alamo Pintado Creek level too, and I'm not sure if that's feasible or not. I think that what you're hearing from all of us across here is the way if there's going to be upper level parking, the way that is handled to make it the least obvious that it's upper level parking is kind of one of the critical concerns here. And to me, one of the others, which I think is taken care of through reviews, is traffic circulation, because it will be a large impact to traffic on a road that already has a lot of traffic, and in particular that little downhill on Mission from Pine Street down to Alamo Pintado there, that's getting pretty developed. So I guess one of my questions is there enough, if that were to be widened there, is that space dedicated to making that a wider road on that little stretch of Mission? There'd been talk about that, but I don't know if that's even feasible anymore with that little subdivision of houses across the street that's in and such.
We'll run this past Public Works because they are looking at all of those improvements from Pine down to the intersection, and we'll just make sure that we have existing right-of-way and existing developed right-of-way versus what Caltrans has available to expand.
Yeah, because that was my concern, because I know there's been talk about that, and it already seems like it's a difficult thing to do just because of the slope there.
Well, and it's a challenge from that corner in Alamo Pintado and 246 going east on 246. It can't be widened, I don't think. I mean, it looks to me like you really have a narrow place there, unless you eliminate bike lane. It's pretty narrow there. But traffic is going to be a big issue there, no question about it. Yeah.
So one of the other ideas for this building is the concept that was brought forward is basically a north-south running building. The other idea is to run it east-west, so you see more building and parking is behind it. And so Brian may be able to bring back some other just orientation of the site that would help with how everything lays out. Might give you some other ideas. So this is a work in progress.
Yeah.
And when he's ready to bring something forward, we'll bring it to you as a collaborative.
Mary, could I ask a question there? Could we go back to the site plan real quick? Just to look at that. It was my strong feeling when I was out on the site that running the building basically in a east-west direction, which would be along Windmill Lane, which by the way there was a previous development that was I believe approved or close to being approved for the site. that had the building running in that east-west axis. But it seems to me that from the neighbor's standpoint, this is going to be a much more appropriate configuration. They're going to see a lot less building and more landscaping, out their front doors. So that was the reason for this configuration. I hate to say it, but I'd probably lose parking efficiency when I do that. In other words, I would probably, if I turn this building along Windmill Lane, I would probably lose parking in the process of doing that. So that's just food for thought, but that was my thinking on why I ran it in that more north-south axis.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I just want to screen the elevated parking so that you don't see that either. Like, that's, if I was living in that neighborhood and I could see that ramp structure that's over 100 feet long, I think especially again how it's lit at night. That talk about Nancy earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, I would freak out, I think.
Yeah. This configuration, I think, is better than if it were laid out east, west, and so forth. I agree with that. But I agree the issues you're talking about are real too.
Yeah.
Well, it allows a visual corridor out to the mountains and,
Right,
as
you
well.
don't lose it all.
That
Right.
you absolutely would.
Yeah.
It's interesting, having lived pretty much most of my life here, I didn't think about the security of a ground floor garage. I'm very spoiled, but I think that's a valid comment, and how that would be handled. Again, right now we're in the longest days of the year, but they're gonna be doing doctor's appointments and people will be in there, especially if there's urgent care, extended hours, if not 24/7. So that's a very real concern to take in when deciding what portion of the building is dedicated to urgent care in relationship to the neighbors and lighting and such.
I would just, Brian mentioned something, and I think you were trying to describe, like, okay, if this structure almost park-like or something, and I'm sort of picturing what you're saying, almost like it's all sort of built into the landscape, the building, and sort of like seamless, the landscape to the building, with this parking structure in between. And I picture almost like a complex or something like a park, or, again, it wouldn't be a park, but something that almost creates, I think you mentioned perhaps it's a separate entrance for the cancer center or something, and I imagine somebody coming in for a cancer treatment, coming up this ramp and having sort of a beautiful space to park into and pull into, and then equally for the neighbors as well. So I do think it's a case of, some creative thinking as far as how to make that happen. But I have seen places like that. I think about Santa Barbara, sometimes the parking garages that we park in there, and they feel nice when you pull up to them or go into them. And granted, I'm not looking out my front door at those, but I think there's probably some room for, for some good creative ideas there at least.
Okay. Is that helpful?
It's extremely helpful, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. As I said, this is first step. The clinic's got a long way to go, but your comments actually have been extremely helpful, so I appreciate it.
And I hope you know that everybody here is really excited about the prospect of having the project here, because this is, it provides a terrific service for us, and those of us that are a little more geriatric really appreciate it.
I do have one last question about the selection of this site versus, I think there's a big empty lot, which I don't know what the status of it is, but I believe it's by Village Lane, where the country clinic is now at Almo Pintado. Is that just a smaller site? Were there other locations considered in Solvang for the clinic?
Well,
I honestly cannot answer that question. This is the site that they have pinpointed, so knowing Sansom, I'm sure that they've worked hard to try to find what the appropriate location is for them. So I can't really speak to what the availability of anything else, or whether they've looked at anything else, but I can find out.
The site that you were referring to on El Vitado and Village, that has been approved for a 32-unit condominium project. It's actually zoned residential from the previous housing element. That was one of the sites that they were able to meet their RENA numbers. And we do have now an approved project on that site.
Okay.
And that project will be coming before you when they get their, you know, this is again, one of those projects that didn't have guidance from a BRR or a DRC, went to the planning commission. There are some follow-up elements that need to be reviewed by your committee.
Okay.
And it is an Eric Vasquez project, so.
Oh, okay. All right.
Any final comments for Brian? I appreciate your patience with us today, and we appreciate your efforts to advance this project.
Well, I appreciate that I was able to meet with you without having to drive up there, so it's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's an interesting project, and
It's pretty
great.
significant. Oh,
yeah. No, he's done. Okay. Anything more? Oh, there's still more things to talk about here.
Yes.
Next item. Yeah, the GPAC status report.
So item number 8 is the general plan update and GPAC meeting. I just have a fairly brief update today, but the GPAC has definitely been very active. They had their first official meeting, which was followed by an unofficial meeting of the GPAC without the consultants. They mostly have focused, and I'll just point out and remind everybody again that there's if we can pull up the site, we have a dedicated site for everything that's going on with the general plan. It's this plansolving.com, and you will see that everything that's being produced as part of this process is published here. So one of the first things that was published was the existing conditions and trends workbook, and also along with that, the existing conditions and trends story map, which is a more interactive way of looking at this information. So what the GPAC spent 3 hours the other day on is really diving into the existing conditions and trends workbook. It is really a document that just documents what are the existing conditions and what have been the trends over time. So that's a stepping stone going forward. So there's a few things that GPAC has noticed and noted from being local, from knowing the community. There's some historic items that we'll just polish up and highlight, as well as some others, just adding a little bit more history and clarifying some of the trends. But that document is almost done. It will be revised slightly. And then another document that has been published here is the community outreach summary. So we now have, from the first workshop that we held with a consultant that was all on Zoom, and then followed by the second workshop that was at the Veterans Hall, and all of the online feedback and stakeholder interviews that have been collected to date. All of that is documented in this summary. So this is something for everyone to review as we go through this process, because that really tells you sort of the opinion of the community to date as to where we are, what's important, what are some of the beginnings of the vision. And so the next steps now are going to be for all of it will start with a GPAC. The GPAC will first meet and have a really robust conversation about developing the vision and guiding principles for the general plan. So that will be kind of it can take different forms, and we'll be bringing to everyone that's working through this some examples from other communities and how they've approached it. Some keep it very brief and concise, some get a little bit more detailed, but it's basically the principles that will guide sort of the technical development of the general plan for the next 20 years. So it's, if you're looking 20 years ago, what do you want to see, and what are some of the guiding principles that you want to live by? So that will be the first item that the GPAC will be working on next. Their next meeting is June 30th. This committee will be the next one to receive or to work on the vision, the guiding principles. So I may be, depending on what we have in terms of our July meeting, July was kind of the time frame to work on this. It may be a potential that we might schedule a special meeting for that works for all of the committee members. And then once design review committee looks at it, and you really look at it from the design and what do you see as solving moving forward and the look and feel of it, and give that feedback for the vision and the guiding principles, and that will go to a joint session of the Planning Commission and Council, and that's where they will adopt that vision and guiding principles, which will then be sort of the stepping stone for talking about alternatives and how do we move from where we are here today with our existing conditions to achieving the vision 20 years forward. So that will be the next opportunity for public to participate, which will be sometime in the October timeframe.
Okay. Very good.
A lot of work is being done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer and Esther, for your work on that. And ladies too. Appreciate that. Thank you, seeing you. City staff comments.
Well, so for the next meeting, right now, I do not have any applications that have been submitted, but we now have continued items. So we will have a meeting, July 15th, and at this point, what's that? Sorry. If we just have the 3 items that were continued for follow-up reporting or deliberation, then maybe some of the tasks that Zena just talked about could be added to the agenda. Otherwise, I will keep you posted if I do get additional sign applications or whatever coming in. But at this point, I haven't been approached by anybody for new applications.
Okay, yeah, and I said earlier, I'm not gonna be here for the meeting on the 15th, but I
So-
wish you all well.
Bumbling vice chair will need your help.
And I would say for the general plan session, I would prefer that all of the committee was here.
Sure.
So I would prefer if we can find a time for that for a special meeting.
Okay?
So while you're gone, it'll be a shorter meeting.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. I will say, I think tonight, it still took us a long time, but we got more done. I mean, it seemed like we really plowed through lots and lots of stuff, and I appreciate everybody's doing it. We did it without a nay vote.
It's good because apparently the pipeline is softened because of it.
I think there's
right?
some reaction to,
Yeah.
I think you're well, and there'll be some more of it after tonight. Yeah.
And I really